Oh my God, it's the finale of Lost, y'all.
I have so many notes.
Hello, everyone.
Oh my
Welcome to
God.
another episode of Hot Mess Moments.
Oh,
And we have,
Hot.
I'm
yes,
just so excited that Tyler said that. Okay, sorry.
yeah, we have our special guest for this episode, Tyler Lyons from My Weekly Meltdown.
Oh my God, what a great podcast that is. I've listened a few times, Tyler, and just wow, you're such an inspiration.
It's a cry for help.
It's a pretty good podcast. Yeah,
It's
I'll
a
agree.
cry for help.
No, it's great. We love
No.
my weekly meltdown. Let's introduce ourselves and then we'll introduce Tyler. So
Okay.
my name is 8-Bit Dylan, also known in my real life as Dylan Zahner. I am a huge fan of Lost, one of my favorite shows of all time, but I've never seen The Nanny before.
And I'm Beth Dixon, also known as Augusta Wind 11 online, as well as on my Twitch channel. My favorite show of all time is The Nanny, but I'd never seen Lost before, and I am in for a huge treat tonight because not only do I get to chat with one of my best friends, Dylan, about his favorite show, Lost, and we're talking about 3 episodes that end season 1. We also brought in one of my other really good friends, and as we mentioned before, my weekly meltdown co-host, Tyler Lyons, who's also a huge Lost head. I don't know if that's what you call people, but I'm going to say Lost head. And
I don't know if there's like a proper fandom name for people that love Lost. Dylan.
I think there is, but I don't think I can say the name because it might
Okay.
spoil some stuff.
Hatch
Yeah,
heads.
yeah. No.
I'm going to call it Hatch head.
Okay, yes, we're hatch heads.
But
Tyler,
yes, thank you
yeah.
guys for having me on. I'm really excited to talk all things Lost. Like when you guys first started this podcast, I was like, I want to talk about the Exodus with you guys. And I feel like I need to defend Jack a little bit on this podcast because there's been some slinging about my favorite doctor on Lost, and I need to defend his honor because Jack is my favorite character.
You said my favorite doctor on Lost. Like, it's really not that big of a competition so far between Jack and Christian. Like,
hey, you never know. You never know.
Yeah,
it's true. I don't know what the other ones might bring. We might have more doctors in the future,
never know.
maybe in the past, all that kind of stuff.
With
Although
Lost,
I have a
expect
theory.
the unexpected. For sure.
Okay, Big Brother. Okay,
I know.
Big Brother, coming in and tying in all those stuff.
Julie Chen Moonves stole it from Lost.
Except for Big Brother started before.
Yeah.
When did she start saying "expect the unexpected"? Tyler, you would actually might know this.
Yeah, so I think that was season 4, I think, because that's when they did like the X's twist, and that's when she told house guests like expect the unexpected, like the EX was like for their X's. So I'm pretty sure that's when it started.
So if it was season 4, that would have been 2004, 2005.
I think 2005. So
so Lost came first then.
Yeah.
Julie Chen Moonves, run the check. You owe ABC.
Maybe Julie Chen Moonves knows about the numbers and Lost, so she wanted to wait for season 4 because that's the first of the numbers to say that.
Oh my God, Julie Chen Moonves is a fan of Lost. What if the Big Brother house is in the hatch?
Oh my God.
Maybe.
And as we know now, over the past few years, she has moved from being more logic-based to faith-based. So this is, talking about the various different, belief systems.
Yes.
Now I'm just picturing like Julie Chen like being like at the bottom of the hatch, being like, "Good evening, I'm Julie Chen. Welcome to the hatch."
Yes, I would love that.
Let me get back up there, please.
Oh my God, could you imagine? She was like, "Welcome to Big Brother," and like, and it's just like all of those people like who have just basically go from Survivor to Big Brother in the hatch.
Yeah.
And actually, if this is the twist, I hope it is. Like, I hope that this is what, like, no wonder people like Tyler and Allison. Okay, so full disclosure, Allison, who's our third co-host, and she's the one who started My Weekly Meltdown. We were telling her that Tyler was going to be on Hot Mess Moments this week. And this was before we started recording this past Thursday. And or afterwards, I can't remember. I think it was after we recorded and they were talking about it. And I went, if you guys need to discuss something for Lost, I'll take my headphones out. So I took my headphones out and I like walked over, got a seltzer, was like looking at stuff, and I'm looking and Tyler's like really intensely doing some points, and Allison's just like, mom, and I was just like watching their facial reactions, and it looks so intense. And then I was like, wave at me when I'm good to come on. And at one point, Allison went like, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, is it good? And they both went, no. And I was like, oh, okay, jeez. And I was like, okay, fine. I didn't put him in. So clearly, everyone around me who loves Big Brother also loves Lost. So
well, and I'm
therefore,
glad that Allison is like taking it as seriously as I was in terms of like not spoiling you for anything. Like you and I have hung out in person, like gone out to dinner, like talked about the nanny and Lost with my partner, and like I'm just being so mindful about
It's so
not
hard.
spoiling. It is so hard. Like Dylan and I have like chatted about like, oh my god, I can't wait for Beth to hear about this, to find out more about that. But like it's such a rare thing for somebody to be so unspoiled about like, in my opinion, the best TV show of all time.
Amen. Yes.
And like me and Dylan like watched this like when we were like just like youngins on the TV, and so like it's really cool to like see somebody like now experiencing this for the first time. And like I love like the whole like Beth has a theory section of hot mess moments.
You mean the whole 45 minutes that I just
yes. But like that's exactly like what it was like watching Lost for the first time. And like Lost was like the first like, I feel like that was like the first like message boards heavy show. That's when like the internet like message boards and stuff and podcasts were like a thing when Lost came out.
Yeah. You know, the only thing that I think could rival and I'm being serious about this, I think the only thing that could rival probably the message boards in 2004, 2005 would be the Harry Potter message boards.
Trying
to figure out what was going to happen in the books, because the books weren't finished at that point. The last book came out in 2007, I believe, 2008, around that area. Or was it 2010? They had
already started the movies. I know that. Like they had not finished the book series until like they had already started the movies.
The 6th movie came out in 2009. Okay, so I think the last book came out in 2007, if I'm not mistaken. I was in college. But regardless, I just remember being from middle school and high school, I loved those message boards, and it was always like a theory about what's going to happen in the books. Like, is Dumbledore really dead? Like things like that. Mm-hmm. Also, spoiler alert, I'm sorry if you didn't know Dumbledore died, but he did.
Also,
I remember those kind
screw
of things.
J.K. Rowling. Yes. On site. No, I'm kidding.
Oh my gosh, I felt so bad. I ran into one of my friends and colleagues. So for those that are wondering, where the hell is Beth right now? If you're watching the video, I am in a hotel room sitting on my bed. I'm actually up at my college for work. And I ran into one of my good friends, one of my classmates, who's works in admissions at my school and is also a remote employee. And so she and I had lunch together, and she said, "Oh, I would love to come to Brooklyn and visit you on like my way back down to." She lives in Virginia, and I was like, "Oh my god, I would love that." I said, "You're more than welcome to pop by anytime." She's like, "Oh my god, could we go to the Harry Potter store?" And I wanted to be like, that's a fat no from me. I am in no way going to give money to Harry Potter. But I was also like, you know what? Like, I'll talk with her about that when we're not having lunch and reminiscing and seeing each other for the first time since like 2.5 years at this point. So could you imagine if I was just like, no, it's super transphobic and blah, blah, blah. If I just like shot her down immediately, because I will have that conversation with her. I just felt like maybe not in that exact moment.
Totally. Before we get too distracted, because we have a lot to cover today, just letting people know, there will be no covering of the nanny in this episode. So this is a Lost-focused episode. And going forward, I'm going to ask Tyler's opinion here. I was thinking, going into season 2, do you think it would be smarter for us to split up our nanny and Lost? Like we record them all at once, but we release a nanny and then a Lost each week? Because we could. And if you guys are listening right now, let us know if you would prefer that method of delivery. So that way you could get like a nanny episode on Tuesday and a Lost episode on Thursday or something along those lines.
We would be wearing the same outfit because we would record them at the same time.
I think that would give you guys like the stat nerd in me is like that would give you guys more engagement, like give you guys more data in terms of like what people are listening to. Plus like increase your like online presence because you're uploading more frequently. So I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
Well, we might consider doing that for season 2. All right, so let's get into the first episode of this 3-part finale, Lost, episode 22, Born to Run.
I want it known. I have 4.5 pages of notes for tonight.
Yes!
So a lot of this for me was because so Dylan and I, first of all, I felt so bad for Dylan. Tyler and I went out for dinner on Friday night. Dylan was streaming, and when I got back, I popped into his chat and I was like, "Hey Dylan, I got to have dinner with Tyler and Tim
so
tonight." And he was like, "Oh my god, that's so great." And then I go, "Guess what we watched afterwards?" Because we watched Scary Movie 3 afterwards. And Dylan's like, "You watched the episodes? What the heck?" And
I was like, "Oh my god."
You were like, "I wish you would have told me." And I was like, "No, we watched Scary Movie 3. Come on, your
Obviously.
Duh. And like fully quoted the movie the entire time.
Oh, she did. The whole rap.
Love it.
The whole rap.
The whole rap, I
Start
got
to
that
finish.
down.
Of course,
Really,
you
really
have
great.
to.
Yeah.
But I did have to say a lot of my notes are really just to tell me what it happens in the episode, not necessarily like my thoughts, but more so like the order of what's happening. Let's kind of chat about this. Do we think the best format for this is to go through chronologically what's happening in each episode, or is it to talk about the storylines generally going through all 3? Are we going to do one episode at a time? What do you think works best?
I think for the first one, Born to Run, because it's a Kate-centric episode, we can just do like we normally do, where we just talk about the storylines. I think for Exodus Part 1 and Part 2, you should cover them chronologically because it all kind of like factors into the ending and like how things play out.
Do you agree, Tyler?
I think so. And like Born to Run is definitely like a setup episode for the finale. So I think like the real like meat and potatoes of this podcast is definitely like Exodus as a whole. But I really enjoyed this Kate flashback episode too.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So we'll start off with Born to Run. And I kind of want to talk about the memories first with Kate and then talk about, because I think this is one of the few times where the memories are really more important to the character development. And it doesn't necessarily inform what's happening IRL. Like it does, but it doesn't. Like I feel like we're getting more information about Kate. And I kind of generally felt like throughout this episode that they were like, you know what? We really haven't given Kate much. So like, let's give her some flashbacks to flesh her out a little bit more. Like that's like the kind of feeling I got from this episode. Overall, Born to Run, I put an 8 out of 10. I thought it was a really solid episode. Wasn't like my favorite thing of all time, but it was definitely better than average. I liked seeing, again, I've been really vocal about this over the past few episodes, but I really am enjoying the fact that this was like a woman-centered episode, and anytime we get to see more of Kate's background and see like how strong she really is and how independent she is and not just used as a tool for the men, I really, really enjoy that.
Yeah, a part of me almost wishes that we get more flashback Kate in the present day. Like I feel like we're not really
More
getting
grit.
that in season 1. Yeah.
I would definitely say like this is like one of the better like Kate flashback episodes in my opinion. Just because like it gives like a lot of backstory to like especially like the little like toy like plane that she like keeps with her. Like that's a very important piece for Kate's story. I know a lot of people like kind of shit on like Kate's like character and backstory. Like Beth, your opinion on Kate is not alone. Like a lot of the Lost community feels that way about Kate's story, but I think Evangeline Lilly does an incredible job like acting the hell out of especially this flashback.
Well, that's what I like the most, is that this gives her more to work with as an actress. Anytime that I make fun of her for being like and like wincing and such, it has nothing to do with her. It has everything to
What?
I swear I just saw a spirit move in here.
Ooh.
That was so freaky.
That'll be the second haunted moment on Hot Mess Moments.
That was, I mean, I'm not even joking. I don't believe, you know how like sometimes if you move your eyes, you get like a little thing. I
Yeah.
don't believe it was that, although my eyes did move. It was like I saw like it looked like fog just go.
It's the smoke monster.
Oh my God. Can we talk about something before we even get to that point? I had been calling that a smoke monster or like an invisible monster without, because I didn't, I said smoke or like a vapor. I used all these words, not really
vape
knowing what it
monster.
was. The vape monster.
Oh my
In
God.
2021.
Yeah.
A vape monster was a jewel. No, but like I had been using that as kind of like, because it like, for me, it was like up in smoke. I didn't know where it went. Like, then it literally was smoke. And I was like, oh, this, I literally called that. Okay,
Yeah.
but that's we'll get to that. So the memories for Kate, I think, are really, really interesting. I think that what we get to see here is a lot more of the backstory. It answers a lot of the questions from her last centered episode as well, like when she's holding up the bank and we see her steal the plane, and we get some more of the context what happens after that point, with the air marshal when she's in Australia, and we also see what happens before that. So we get to see a couple of different timelines with Kate, which I think is really interesting, rather than sticking with one timeline in her memories of being like, this is what led to what's his name? Who's her
Oh,
friend?
Tom?
Tom.
Yeah.
Tom's death.
I think
Like
about that.
they could have very easily just made that just the memory for the entire time, but instead they did the extra step. And I think this is necessary, like Tyler said, for setting up for Exodus. And I think it's just a good way to wrap up her character for season 1, to then show you this is then what she's like right before she gets put on the plane. She's been caught after all the other memory, like the first Kate centered episode that we have. So I thought this was really interesting. It's not just one time frame. We're getting a couple.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
oh yeah, go on.
Bill,
No, I was just gonna say I thought it was really funny that in her backstory, it's you learn that like Tom is this like childhood love that she had that never really worked out. I was rewatching it and I already knew what was going to happen in the flashback, but I was like, wouldn't it be really funny if Tom ended up being just some guy that she was stalking? And like, I got a vibe of that at first. And I was like, wait, did I misremember how this is? And I was like, oh, wait, never mind. Yeah, they're like childhood. But I was like, imagine if that had been the case. That'd have been so funny. It's just like, Tom, it doesn't even know who the hell she is. She's just
like,
obsessed with him.
who are you?
Yeah.
We also, what I also like about this show is that it answers questions while also posing new ones for people to consider. Like,
Yeah.
I want to know what the heck's going on with her and her mom at the end of this episode.
Yeah.
You know, so there's some things there that are interesting. But basically, we start off with her changing her license plate and dyeing her hair, which it was so clearly a wig. That was my favorite part in the very opening scene. I was like, that wig has been teased, and they won't even show her face because you know that is a hard wig line in the front. They didn't have the lace front going on at that time.
Yeah.
I was dying to myself thinking like, girl, show us, turn around. Let's see the hard wig line. Let's see it. Let's see it. Let's see it. So we see her change her license plate, change her name, change her hair at this motel. And she goes from Nebraska to Ohio license plates. And I'm trying to see, this is the problem. I wrote everything in chronological order. So now I got to figure out where the next memory comes in. Oh,
yeah.
So Tom, she finds Tom, in, I don't know which state. I don't know if they're in Ohio or wherever they're in now.
I think they are in Ohio. Yeah. Yeah. She goes
so.
to visit Tom in Ohio.
Or was it Missouri?
No,
I think it was Missouri.
Maybe I can't remember. I just remember that like the whole point of this. Yeah. She visits Tom. She visits Tom because she needs a favor.
So she needs a favor. She says Diane, I think is, or Deborah. Yep. Diane. Deborah. No, so Diane is not doing well, and that she needs him to basically like pull a favor to get some scans, some tests done first, or like, you know, get her like priority. And she's been waiting to help that. And he's a doctor. You see her, but like, can we just talk about this? Like, she greets him when he gets into his car, And
Yeah,
she's
that's
in the
why I was
back
like
seat.
stalker. I was like, is she a stalker? What's happening here?
Okay, I'm not gonna lie. I had a moment where I was like, thank God a man learns what it's like to be a woman and have to like look into the back seat of the car before you open the damn door in a
That is
parking
so true.
garage.
Yeah.
But so she scares the shit out of him. And I love that he's like not concerned about it. He's like, oh my God, Kate.
He's like,
Kate,
she does this all the time.
Kate, oh my God, why are you just like sitting back there? Red flag. That should be a red flag.
I thought it was kind of hot. I was just like, I was waiting for the like, ow, 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 ow. Like as she's like in the back, she's like, hey, Tom. And he's like, oh, Kate, what are you doing back there?
What would you have done if he just like didn't even say anything, just ripped off his scrubs?
I would have been into it.
She's like, "Tom," and he's like,
She's just sitting there like this, shaking it, shimmying his tits. Like,
and then she just
"Ooh."
sits there and goes, no, not that. I need a favor. Put your
She's like,
scrub on.
no, yeah, not what I wanted.
No, where's the toy
Maybe
airplane?
later.
Yeah.
Oh God. So basically she asks Tom for this help and she goes to his house when he's calling in the favor and she looks at his pictures of his baby and his wife on the fridge and makes some remarks about them and he he says the tests are getting like called in.
So basically, yeah, Diane needs to do an MRI. And so while the MRI scans are getting processed, he's like, we have 3 hours to kill.
And she said, well, do you think it's still there? And he said, it's the middle of the night. And she goes, do you going to have access to this? Oh, did I freeze?
Yeah,
okay,
you're like freezing.
Sorry.
Your audio's still good. It's just your video.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for our audio listeners, hopefully you're still going to get good quality video. People, I'm going to freeze every once in a while. I am on cheap hotel internet in the country.
We love that.
So basically, I'm like, is this going to be a body? And they're like, this is the last chance we might get. First of all, why? That seems like you could just go there anytime.
I think it was because she was already on the run from cops. So she's like, I'm only visiting because I need a favor, and then I'm never going to be seen here again.
So is
like,
Tom fully aware that she's on the run?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think that
Okay.
he gets. I think that's why it's very hush hush about this like deal, like helping her out.
Okay, so I did not catch that at all. I thought that he was like oblivious to that, and that's why I was like, everything that he's doing seems very like, all right, yeah, I'll call in a favor, no big deal. like the way he acted.
No, I think it's supposed to be like a very stark difference between like how her mom reacts to seeing her compared to like how Tom is like willing to like to help Kate out in any way, like very supportive, like ask no questions, just like very good like support.
Which is like so funny because she does the creepy shit with him.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just gonna sit in your back seat with you. like, and then she's just like, Mom, I'm here, and she's like, fuck hell. No, I'm just kidding. So like, I just do think that that's kind of funny. But you're right. I think that's a good point. So what they have done is actually buried a time capsule when they were younger, and they recorded. They had like a recording of them putting together and burying the time capsule, which was in the middle of some steer farm. Like there was all these like bull around, and I was like,
Midwest.
they're gonna charge the shit out of that car. I don't know what you're thinking. So they dig it up, and
wait. Question for you, Beth.
Yes.
Did you take note of the date that it was recorded?
I didn't. What was it?
It was recorded on August 15th.
Ah!
15.
Yeah.
First of all, obviously 8/15, which we know are part of the numbers, but also Leo season. Yes. It's 5 days after my birthday. So
they actually planned that. They purposely
Wait,
did
time
that.
out. What was the year? 89?
89.
I had just turned 5 days before that.
That's probably why they
Oh.
recorded it.
My God.
They were like, we
So-
have to do this like 5 days after Beth's first birthday.
Oh, guys, little 1-year-old baby Beth. So
You were actually
cute.
in the episode somewhere. You were in that hospital.
Well, okay, weird thing. Just because we're
Yeah.
talking about me being born, you're welcome. I had a classmate, and she and I both went to London. There were 23 of us that went on this London program for our abroad programs, and we found out we had the same birthday. Then we found out we were both born in Syracuse, and there are 3 hospitals in Syracuse. We were born in the same hospital.
Oh,
And she was
wow.
born like
Huh.
7 hours before me. So we were 100% in the same nursery in the same day. Isn't that so
That's
funny?
crazy.
And
That
then we
is
went to
very
London
weird.
together.
That is very strange.
Okay. Just side note there. So I didn't hear about the date. So that's cool with the numbers. But what I did hear is that Tom says, I can't believe that you convinced me to put my favorite plane, like my favorite toy in there. And she said, I didn't convince you. You suggested it. And then when we hear on the recording, he's like, I'm going to put the plane in here because it's cool. And she's like, I can't believe that you're doing that.
Yeah, she does exactly that.
And then he was like, oh my God, I like the way that you non-verbally talk to me.
That is verbal.
No, not.
That's how I speak to my husband. I just make inaudible.
I'm sorry,
weird
you're right.
noises.
It's not non-verbal; it's post-verbal. It's just.
Okay. Wait. I want to get your thoughts though on like the wrap up of Kate's flashbacks, because clearly like the mom, they visit the mom. We get that tender scene where mom's like, get the fuck out of here. She's like,
time out. But first, she's like excited to see her, and I can't tell
Yeah.
if it's because she's like excited to see her little girl and she's not really with it, and then as she gets more with it, she's like, oh, this is a dangerous situation, and gets scared, or if there's a confusion.
Yeah.
And so this is what's so interesting to me is I could see this being a portion of the Lost writers making you want to believe that her mom thinks that she's scary and dangerous because she's wanted. But I actually think that that's my theory, is that her mom doesn't know that and is just not with it and is scared and is not used to seeing her, maybe hasn't seen her for a long time, and causes a commotion, which is what
Okay.
startles Kate. So that's my theory.
Okay.
The classic Lost, like, gotcha thing.
They're
Like, you're not gonna get me this time. I'm gonna preemptively get it for you.
So then after this, this is where we get that scene where she's running from the cops, and Tom is in the car with her, and she says, get out of the car, like get out, and he doesn't want to.
No, he doesn't want to get out. And she basically she tells him, you got to get out for your own safety, blah blah blah. And he's like, no, like he's basically trying to get her to turn herself in, stop being on the run, those kind of things. And she looks at him, considers it. He won't get out of the car. So she speeds through. There's a cop ready to shoot them, which, like, did she not see that? I don't know. At the very least, be like, get down to him. Also, how did he not see that? I don't know. I just like, that was a weird moment where he's just like, what if I just sat up here and took the bullets? And so they run through a little security guard, like, barrier thing, and the cop shoots them, and I assume that he died from the bullets. And then she crashes a car when she's trying to escape, and when she looks over, he's all bloody and doesn't have a pulse. He's dead. And I would like to thank her for checking for a pulse, which the fucking doctor Jack has not fucking done on the show.
Ooh,
Tyler, do you care to comment?
First jab on Jack.
Do you care to comment on his inability to check for a pulse?
Listen, he's got a lot of shit going on, okay? Like, he's on the island. He gets to make his own rules
He
now,
works
as
in
you
an
said in a
ER.
previous... Listen,
There's a lot of shit that happens in an ER. He still checks for a fucking pulse before he declares someone dead.
You're right. That's pretty inexcusable. But also, maybe we just don't see it on camera. Maybe the writers are like, is this really like that exciting of a TV moment?
True.
Probably not. But it is exciting when she's trying to see if Tom is alive, which he is not. So...
Yeah, Tom is dead, and she goes on the run. She decides to run off and go off on her merry way.
Leaves him, and as she leaves the plane and all that stuff, you see it in the back seat, and she leaves all that. And what we
Yep.
find out from the air marshal, because we get to see him again in these flashbacks right
That's in
before
the Exodus.
Oh, that's an Exodus?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was okay. See, this is what happens when you put 3 episodes in one night. I sat
That's
here
true.
thinking, what a cool thing that they did both past and present, or like somewhat present.
I thought it was too. I had to double check. I just checked just now, but yeah.
Oh man, stupid fact checking, whatever.
I mean, but those things are like right next to each other, like in the timeline, basically. So I think it's okay to kind of like blend it together.
So let's cover some of the present day stuff that happens. So, we get new character Dr. Arts, who
Okay.
go in, girl.
Wait to hear what Beth has to say about Arts.
Go in, girl.
This actually is more just I'm kind of more ragey from a production standpoint.
It's
If
weird.
what is the choice in the last 3 episodes to create someone who has a somewhat important arc here?
I
but
can
is
answer
also
that for you. Actually,
okay. Please do. Please do.
Yes.
Yeah. So, so one complaint about like all of season 1 of Lost was like the viewers being like, you know, there's so many other people that we aren't seeing, and they just kind of like stand off to the side. And like I think Mike Bloom refers to them as hecklers on the beach, which is very accurate to who they are. But basically, this was the writers basically being like, listen, you want to know who these other people are? We're going to show you why they're pretty uninteresting and unrootable to follow, and they don't really contribute anything to the camp or anything. So here's the thing: we're going to create this like really shitty character and blow him literally to pieces just a few hours later. So,
well, that's what I think is so funny is like, but like the whole joke that he has is like, you all think you're better than us and you're the it crew. Like it was so thick from the writers that I was like, I get it. Like at the same time, I was like, what the heck? Jeez. Like at least put him in the census episode.
It's very strange. They do that. I was explaining that in earlier episodes. They do that a lot in season 1, where they like the extra of the episode of sorts. They'll introduce and then never reintroduce them again. Arts gets a little bit more screen time. He's in 3 episodes, and with Arts, he does come with a very important storyline here, where he is explaining how it's monsoon season soon, and that in order for this raft to properly go north, they need to launch now, because by the time monsoon season hits, the winds will shift south and they will effectively be sailing towards Antarctica, which is like not where you want to be if you're like on a dingy little raft. And so this gives like a timeline for them. Before it was just, we'll finish the raft whenever. Now it's like, shit, we got to get this done like as soon as possible to launch this.
I like that nobody questioned that the ocean is going to work the same way and that the weather is going to work the same way on a fucking tropical island that has polar bears and smoke monsters, and your wounds heal the next day. And like I just sat there and I was just kind of like, yeah, okay, that's really cute for when it's like an actual island on real Earth, and I don't know what the hell this is, but cool. But yeah, no, like I like that. I'm going to provide some plot points so that people don't come after us on the message boards. This is what I kind of got out of that.
That's literally what it is. And they're like, we're going to show you how terrible these people are. You do not want to know who these people are, basically.
Yeah. I will say though,
my note for him was, who the fuck is this high school teacher spewing meteorological facts?
Yes. The cool part about Arts, though, is he does, even though he is like a side extra character, he does get more embellishment than others. He does actually show up in some of the flashbacks later in Exodus. So like, it wasn't like they just threw him in the present day and then never acknowledged him again. Who knows? Maybe we'll see Arts again in the future. Who knows? Like in flashbacks and stuff like that.
Yeah. And we did see him in a flashback in one of the Exodus parts too. Which is kind of fun.
But you never know.
So what we're hearing here is, they're finishing up the raft and they're trying to set sail as soon as they can. And we hear, because Charlie starts having a conversation with Kate about when he's trying to write, like, he's like writing songs, and he's like, this is, when they find me, oh my gosh, right now I bet all my records are like platinum because like I went missing, and so everyone's buying this. So, like, what are you going to do when you're famous, when we're saved, and that kind of thing? And that triggers her, like, oh my god, if I get saved, like, that's the last thing I want to be, is in the public face.
Yeah.
And so she is trying to get on the raft so that she doesn't have to be saved in a public way. And so she tries to take Sawyer's spot on the raft. Sawyer gets it immediately, what she's trying to do, and tries to threaten her. But I love Kate did not take no shit from him.
She
and
did
she was like,
not.
listen, I will get in that raft if I fucking want to. And then she grabbed his balls and she went, you're my little bitch now. And he went, and then
And I hate everything about what you just did. Every single fucking second of what we just experienced, I fucking hated.
But you have to do it with a face that's like confused, excited, and like.
I hate that. And then she spit in his mouth and slapped him.
You know what's going to be great is when I find out that my coworkers are on either side of me and they're listening to me going,
Yes.
oh, it's so funny.
Okay.
I keep having to remember I am in hotels, so if I sometimes drop my voice like this, it's because it's 10 o'clock at night. I'm trying to podcast somewhat respectfully.
True. So there is another plot line that is happening concurrently with this, where Jack finally gets let into the hatch circle of trust, and Locke and Saeed decide to show Jack this hatch. It seems like they've dug out this hatch quite a bit, and it seems this tube shape that's like coming up out of the dirt. What were your thoughts, Beth, when you first saw this? Like how big this thing was?
So it's actually interesting. I thought that they found like a small like part of like a tube that ran like a tunnel that ran like a tube
It could
left
be,
and
yeah.
right. And yeah, it could. But when they had it like dug all the way around in a circle, they were like, yeah, we're going to fit 40 people in here. And I was like, what are you, a New York City landlord? Because that is tiny.
That's true.
Tyler gets it.
Yeah, definitely.
But I mean, that like while it's big that they like dug it out, I'm also looking at it going like that. So like it didn't occur to me that it would go down like super far. Like I thought like, okay, they definitely dug it here and then it goes to the left and the right, like as a tube or a tunnel. So I thought it was kind of interesting to see it like that, but we did see the numbers on it at the end of the numbers episode, but I had forgotten they were on it until Exodus, and we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
And of course, what I also loved in this section, or another part of the next section of them, is Locke putting Jack in his damn place and talking about judgment. You made a judgment call. I'm making a judgment call. I loved it. Oh my God. When Locke was like, and how come you got to say who got to know about guns when it was you made a judgment call? Like, I mean, he like put him in his motherfucking place. I was here for it. Tyler, once again, I'm going to come to you. Do you feel like Locke has a legitimate point here, or do you kind of side with Jack? I know that you're a big Jack fan, but do you side with Jack in this situation?
I mean, in my opinion, like if I'm Jack, right? Like he said it like perfectly in Exodus. He says, everyone's fine with me being the leader until I do something they don't like. And that is totally a thing. And Locke loses all like credibility once like the whole like Boone thing happens. Like he's like wearing his like the shirt with like his blood on it to his funeral and shit. Like Locke is just like seen as like somebody that's not going to listen to logic at all. And I feel like we talk about this on like our Big Brother shows where like I'm somebody that can't deal with somebody who doesn't like think logically. Like you cannot like work with those people. You can't rely on those people. And it's just like the tension is just like building between the two of these people. And it's very like very like almost like biblically like man of science versus man of faith, right?
Yeah.
And these two like very big like very different ideologies of life are coming to a head, and it's something that can't like they really can't see eye to eye on how each other like comes to these decisions. But like for better or for worse, like Jack is the leader of this island in terms of like people respecting him, going to him to like make decisions and stuff like that. And if Locke like wanted to be in that position, he should have been rallying the troops together and doing something else instead of going on like a spiritual mission by himself and getting Boone killed off in the woods.
And I also do sit back and say, so like, I also have to remember that I fully got a master's degree in leadership. Like literally it's called educational leadership.
Yeah.
And it was just within the scope of education, but it was a leadership degree. And when I look at Jack, I don't see a leader, I see a manager. There are very two different things. A leader is somebody who empowers people to make the decisions that are best for them and for their group, doesn't dictate what's going to happen. They make a decision when people have brought information to them and people are looking for a decision to be made, and helps to shift that out and everything, but doesn't sit back and go, you do this and you do that, whatever. That's a manager. Managers and leaders are very, very different. And so when I'm looking through this from a, late 2010s master's degree lens that would have been very different 15 years prior when they were writing this, I don't see someone who's an effective leader. I see somebody who is an effective manager, but is actually not effective because he doesn't inspire people to do the things that they need to do. He inspires the masses, but not the other leaders on the island. And a good leader also recognizes that they're not the only person who has a say in situations, and that they need to empower other people who might have better ideas, and also recognize that they're not the person who, they're not God. They're not all knowing. Totally. And I think that that's what's so interesting about, and I would also say Locke has those issues 100% as well. What I really like is when I look back at this whole season, what I'm seeing is we saw shades of logic versus faith with these two characters. We saw faith save Jack. Mm-hmm. We saw logic save Locke. But yet they always will defer to what they're more comfortable with and what they believe in. And we see a lot of black versus white, but what we don't see is gray. And that you can have faith and fate, and you can also have logic and science. Can work together really well. Logic and science saved. Oh, am I gone? Am I back?
Oh, you're back. You're back. Welcome to that internet life, yo.
But yeah, so just a really interesting dynamic in these episodes. We also see back at the raft that Michael has gotten suddenly very ill in the stomach, which to me, he acted more like he had a hernia than he did like an illness. He kept going like, oh, in one spot on his stomach. And I just was like, well, you did just lift an entire wing of a plane and brought it over to a raft. So to me, I was like, fucking dude has a hernia, of course. But no, we find out.
He's been poisoned.
He's been poisoned.
Dun, 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 dun.
Which is
interesting.
I like that Locke looked at Walt and was like, Walt, did you do that again?
Well, I think it's interesting because then it adds another whodunit scenario similar to like the fire that hit the raft a few episodes back. This kind of leads into a scene where Walt is talking with Locke and he's like, I didn't do it. I just need to let you know that I didn't do this. I didn't poison my own father. And he's like, why would you think that I would think that you would do this? And they have like a back and forth, and Locke touches Walt's arm, and there's this scene where Walt's just like gets this like vision, and he's basically like, don't open it. Like
he's like, don't open that thing. And he goes, what thing? He goes, that thing that you're trying to open. Don't do it. Don't do it. And then we also see after that Walt is like gung-ho about leaving the island, and he hadn't been before. So to me, this means like that the hatch is not going to be a good thing for the islanders, or like the castaways, I mean, but is probably like opening up to secrets of the others, who we find out in Exodus that they're after Walt. And so this is an interesting scenario. Does Walt not want them to open for the greater good, or does he not want them to open because of his own safety?
What do you think?
That was interesting. I don't know. I'm just saying those are my two scenarios that I found. Like, I believe both of them.
Yeah.
Beth, who did you think like poisoned Michael? Like before, like it was revealed who it was. Who were you thinking it was?
I didn't think anybody did. I literally thought he had a hernia, and this was
Okay.
once again, I was like, Jack is just not putting together practice. Like, there's a saying that they say in medicine that I've learned from Dr. Mike's channel. Once
Oh
again,
my God, you're obsessed.
but they tell people in med school when you hear hoof steps, think horses, not zebras, which is basically to be like when you hear hooves, you're going to think about horses. It's more common. Don't go immediately to the zebras. If you're in America and you hear hooves, you're probably not going to hear a freaking zebra going down the street. So go clinically working with the more common things. And then if those don't work, then you go to the thing. He immediately it was like, he's been poisoned. I'm going to look at the water bottles. And I was like, he's presenting like he has something else. So it was just like funny. Like I just sat back and was like, Jack, what are you doing here? And one thing was like, see, look at the bottle of this. And I was like, well, also, you're not supposed to drink out of the same plastic water bottle many times because you can get sick from that. And so I'm just sitting here like, how many times have people shared water bottles and they've been drinking the same stuff out of these water bottles for a month? That could have been buildup from a variety of things. So that's why I was like, I don't know if it's poison as much as, is it just buildup? Is it just like the plastic breaking down in some capacity?
Could you imagine if the episode there was actually no one that was poisoned and it was just a commentary on like plastic? That's all it was.
I mean,
that's what I think, Dylan. Like I feel like Beth is mistaking Jack's ineptitude for like they literally just only have like 43 minutes to like wrap up this like whodunit story.
I mean, it makes sense, and
at the very least, just have them go. All they had to do was sell that with one line, which was, after assessing him, I think the best and the more likely thing is that he's been poisoned.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Right. That tells me that you assessed the patient. What you did now is made it look like he walked up and went, "What happened? Poison?" What?
So at this moment is where let's wrap up the poison storyline and then let's get into like the Sawyer versus Kate stuff.
And we find out here that that actually it was Sun, who was trying to stop Jin from going on the raft. She doesn't want him to leave. And she didn't want to make him really ill, but she wanted to make him ill enough that he wouldn't be able to go on the raft or maybe even be able to finish the raft. And therefore maybe forfeit up his spot on it. What she didn't anticipate is that Michael's drinking that water, not Jin. So that was the big issue there. Okay. And then we go back to the Sawyer-Kate situation. Once again, we have that back and forth of Sawyer has a spot on the raft. Kate doesn't. And Sawyer, in order to curry favor from people on the island to go against Kate, outs her to the entirety of the people on the beach. That she was the one that was in handcuffs with the marshal and that she's a runaway and that she's dangerous and that she doesn't deserve a spot on the raft. And that anything that she says that you shouldn't pay attention to, essentially, that she's a liar and that she's dangerous. And that she's the one that poisoned Michael, I think, is that she was trying to frame him and that kind of thing. And she says it was not me. It's true that I was on the run, that I'd been captured and all that other stuff, but I did not poison Michael. Now, what we do learn is that she actually told Sun to do that. So she kind of by proxy did do that. And I think this is a huge, huge moment for her because now everybody's going to look at her very, very differently. And I can't help but feel like, and I know Tyler's a huge fan of this show, so I can't wait to get your thoughts on this, Tyler. All I could think about was, wow, Lost really looked at Desperate Housewives and said, let's make a whole season 1 of Desperate Housewives about how you really don't know your neighbors and just put it into this one scene and make like an allegory to it.
Yeah. But I feel like for Kate and Sawyer specifically, like they understand each other on a deeper level. And instead of being able to like come together, and I'm not talking romantically or anything, but just like understand each other, they're kind of like playing like a game of chess against each other for this one spot. And I mean, he says like there's nothing on this island keeping me here, like implying that like you mean nothing to me.
Yep.
And I think that really hurts Kate, because I think for Kate specifically, she's kind of and I feel like it's kind of out of character here for her to be wanting this spot on the raft, because I feel like Kate, and I wish they explored this more with like Kate and Locke together, but I feel like Kate is coming to the conclusion that, you know, this whole like plane crash situation, not the worst thing that's ever happened to me, and my life is kind of better that this happened. And not many people on this island can say that, except for Locke as well. I feel like he's coming to that same conclusion. So I kind of wish that they explored.
Walt.
Yeah,
Walt
and Walt
had
too.
thought that beforehand.
Yeah.
Before this episode.
So I think it kind of like works out for her that like, or this is like a blessing in disguise that like maybe she doesn't realize yet, that she like didn't go on the raft. But they just like, it's a shame because like they see each other, but they can't come together. It's very like a give and take relationship.
Yeah.
It's actually really interesting to me in a way. I think about the two of them being very much like a mirror of Sun and Jin, and that Sun and Jin came to the island together, and through the island have drifted apart, and their past has affected them to go that way. And there's a lot of similarities between these two. Not that Kate and Sawyer are necessarily a romantic couple. There's obviously some tension there, but it's not inherently romantic. And what I think is really interesting once again is that for all intents and purposes, Sawyer and Kate should love being on this island, in comparison to the real lives. For all intents and purposes, Sun and Jin should love being on this island. Or at least, you know what I mean? Like they're able to reconnect with the things that make them human and have a rebirth and have these different kinds of things that they don't have to run away from. And so it's just a really interesting thing to kind of watch. Like Jin's just, we figure out in Exodus, and we'll get to that, like why Jin wants to be on the raft. But it is an interesting scenario where I kind of, up until that last episode, was like, I don't understand why Jin wants to leave when this is the perfect solution to not have to deal with Sun's father anymore.
I think the one caveat is I think the reason Sawyer wants to leave is he's still bent on revenge to kill the man who forced or basically led to his family dying. And I think that's his motivation here, is like, while life on the island is great for him, he is so hell-bent on killing Sawyer that he will do anything to get off this island to go do that. And he even tells Walt that later on, where he's just basically like, there's a man that I need to kill. And he's like, what does that mean? He's like, I just need to kill him. Like, there's no explanation. I just need to kill him. He mentions that later on the raft. But let's wrap that up, just because we still have 2 more episodes to cover.
Yes. So quick MVP, LVP for this episode. So my MVP for this episode is going to not be Kate, even though it's about her. My MVP is going to go to... you know what? As horrible of a thing as it is that he did to her, I'm going to go with Sawyer here. Okay. I think that's a really probably not obvious choice or something for a lot of people. But I think that ultimately it's important. I think that she was doing him dirty and he stood up for what he needed to do. I also think that this is a situation where he kind of inadvertently, through tough love, essentially helps her, hopefully, to take ownership of something. And I also honestly think like it's kind of important that the other people know who she is and such too.
Agreed.
So I think that's probably like, I don't love this choice for me to say him, because if it wasn't him, I was going to say Walt, because Walt tries to stop the events, which clearly he can sense or see something with the island or with Locke. My LVP is going to go to... I think it's going to go to Kate.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, if Kate had just turned herself in, Tom wouldn't die. if Kate had just didn't tell Sun to fucking poison Jin, he wouldn't get sick. There wouldn't be this whole thing. She wouldn't have been called out in the first place. Like, she really is the reason why she like has an unraveling in both the past and the present. So she's kind of the LVP for it.
No, that makes sense. That makes complete sense. I was gonna say Sun is LVP, but you make a good point. She wouldn't have done it unless Kate told her to.
Yeah.
That
Tyler,
makes
do you
sense.
have an MVP LVP for
Yeah.
this episode?
So I kind of see Sun's like choices here as not justified, but like I see the reasoning behind it, right? Like, she sees that there's still like a lot of work that needs to be done in her marriage, and she's committed to seeing that through. And this is like the one opportunity that her and Jin get to like have a clean slate without any external forces like fucking up their marriage. And it's tough, and she thinks that he's gonna die out there, which is a very realistic possibility, right? And I really love that she confides in Jack that, listen, I was the one to do it. I think Jack and Sun's relationship in season 1 is very underrated in terms of like a support system for one another. I feel like Jack sees Sun as like one of the only like reliable helpers to him, and you guys kind of touched on that when Boone was dying, like how helpful Sun was. So I don't know, I really like Sun in this episode, and I like seeing that Sun can cross the line of morality a little bit to get what she needs done. I think that's a very interesting creative decision from the writers to kind of plant that seed here. So
Tyler, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Are you left-brained?
The
logic, analytical, like.
See, it's weird because like I'm an artist, like I'm a professional photographer. I should be right-brained, but I feel like I'm like very grounded in logic and reality.
Here's the thing: photography and graphic design and such are all about angles and
yes,
like
it's a very
and all
mechanical
that kind of stuff.
art form. Yes,
it's So anyway, it just
Totally.
as you were explaining all of this, I was like, oh yeah, he's such a left.
You're such a lefty.
So left.
I am left-handed, so but
that's a right brain thing.
there you go. But yeah, so I don't know. I would give Sun the MVP.
Okay.
For LVP, I don't really. I don't really have any strong opinions on like people who did like terrible. Like even like the stuff between Kate and Sawyer, I think is a really interesting dynamic. Like we touched on the whole like black and white, like comparing two people in science versus faith, but also like Kate and Sawyer's dynamic is very much so like black and white and not being able to like see the other's perspective. So so even though like they both had like shitty actions in this episode, like I don't want to give them I'll give Arts the LVP for
There we go. being annoying as fuck.
Honestly, I'd give him an MVP. You know, he got these people out when they needed. He got a schedule together.
He really did. Honestly, he's a leader. Like,
yeah, fuck Jack. Fuck Law.
Jack.
He was like, bitch, I got this. Y'all motherfuckers. And they're like, who are you? Some kind of doctor? And he's like, I'm a high school science teacher. And I'm like, that's a real hero right there.
Okay.
You know what?
All right, let's move on to the next episode. We got episode 23, Exodus Part 1.
Should we talk about both episodes together as if it's one big episode?
We probably should. So Exodus Part 1 and Part 2, because they are meant to be watched together. It's very jarring if they aired together, so it makes sense to watch them together.
That's interesting. Why did they not just make it a 2-hour episode or an hour and 20-minute or whatever?
I think maybe they had to maybe because this was like early on in like cable.
Maybe they ordered so many episodes.
I think for like ratings purposes and like things like that, just like you getting the extra data in terms of like who stayed for part 2 type of thing. That would be my guess. I don't know though.
Also for like ad breaks and stuff like that. Maybe there's more ad breaks if you split it into 2 episodes as opposed to a full 2 hour. So this episode is an interesting one. I think we are going to have to go chronologically. And I think every time we hit a flashback, we talk about the flashback when it happens in the episode.
I just want it known. I'm just looking at my notes. And the first two that I come across, which I know we'll talk about, is Shannon is a racist. POS, kill her off. And
Yeah.
then I wrote, Jack is so misogynist. So I'm gonna have feelings here.
I love it.
That was more towards the end of episode 1 and into the beginning of episode 2. But we have
I do have these episodes chronologically noted. So if we ever lose track, I can keep us on track. But first off, give us your rating of the finale, the 2-part finale.
Okay, I'm gonna rate these together. And then I'll do the same thing for LVP MVP at the end. I gotta give the finale a 10 out of 10. This was a great way, I think, to wrap up the season.
Yeah.
I was enthralled. I hated that I had to write notes because it meant that I had to bring my eyes a little bit away from the computer every single time I was watching. This was to the point where I literally missed the smoke monster. I went, Dylan, can you rewind back? And he literally goes, you'll see it again, and didn't rewind back. So
I didn't.
Fuck Dylan very much for not letting me see.
To be fair, you see it way better the second time. The first time, it's like so fast. You would have been like, what the fuck is that?
Okay.
Yeah.
I have some theories coming out of this as well, which I'm excited to get into.
Can't wait.
I can't wait.
But we start off, what I do also like about this is that we get a variety of different memories, and that we also see other characters in some of these memories, because a lot of them are taking place in the airport right before the flight takes off, or like that morning. So we see the first memory that pops up is Walt and Michael in the hotel room, I'm assuming before their flight, like the night before their flight. And I think the memories that we see with Walt and Michael are really meant to show like how their relationship has evolved. I think what I want to talk about when we talk about each of these memories is like what it's supposed to tell us or like represent. And I don't think that there's necessarily important information about their backstory here, other than how much Walt did not trust or respect Michael, and how that has changed to how he sees him now.
And I just want to note that, like, that's what I love about this 2-part finale, is that, like, these flashbacks are not really anything, like, new that we're finding out about these characters.
Yes.
It is just, like, purely, like, character-driven moments in terms of, like, emotion and, like, where they were and where they are now, either for better or for worse. That's up to them and their situation. But it just really, like, fleshes these characters out in a really fulfilling way.
And can I just I want to give so much credit, because I never noticed this until the second viewing of season 1. There are so many questions that are brought up in season 1 that are finally answered in Exodus part 1 and part 2, almost masterfully. Like nowadays, in an era of American horror stories where the finales never really connect to anything, it is really cool to see this show bring up like the numbers on the side of the hatch that gets brought back up here. We get
the Black Rock. We get
Black Rock. Yeah.
That Jack is divorced. We get like I mean, there's so many things here.
Like so many answers to so many questions that were brought up, but also, like you said, bringing up new questions, which is great. We start off after that Walt flashback, and Rousseau returns.
She comes to the beach, and she is armed with a rifle, and she's coming to warn the people on the beach that tells basically saying that the others are coming for them, and that she tells them their story about how she gave birth to her daughter Alex, and then a week later the others came after she saw black smoke, and the next day they came and they took her baby from her, which is why we hear her way earlier in the Saeed episode that I love so much, where she was talking about, have you seen, do you know where Alex is? Have you seen her? That, 16 years later, I mean, Alex would be 16 years old now.
Yep.
And that she's never seen her grow up. And so this is like, she doesn't even know who she's looking for at this point. And obviously it also kind of speaks to her mental state as to why someone would be so desperate and such a pained state. And she says the only things that you can do are run from them, hide, or die. So then there's a beach-wide collaborative effort because of that and because of the monsoon season that Arts was just so great at telling us in the last one that the whole beach, which I love that, like, what the fuck are these people doing? Like, literally, like the only news that is happening on this island is the raft. And Jack has to literally go get a whole bunch of people and go, "Hey, would you help like push the raft into the water?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, I guess we should probably like." I just like it seems so weird to me that it's only like 3 people working on the raft. Like,
Yeah.
wouldn't you think the collaborative effort would be like, "Yeah, I'd like to see if this works. I'm not going to go on the raft, but I think it would be interesting to see if we could get this
But that
going."
just like proves my point that like Jack just like he just becomes the de facto leader because these other people are just like useless. You know, they just like take.
And not this isn't so much a spoiler, but like season 1, it focuses so much more on these other weird tertiary survivors than season 2. Season 2 doesn't even keep consistent extras for who these fucking survivors are. You'll be like, who the fuck is that person? I've never seen that person before. And they'll be in one episode. You're like, okay, I guess they're just one of the 40 survivors. Like,
you know what is? Can I just give my one thing now that we're talking about the extras or the people who have small roles?
Yeah.
Where the fuck was Rose in this episode? I want to see more of her, and I'm still pissed that I didn't get to have any moments. I didn't even get to see her on the freaking plane. I didn't see her in the background anywhere. Is this woman okay?
It's true. Well,
and when I say this woman, I mean the actress. Was she okay? Did she get sick? What's going on?
Yeah.
So he gets the collaborative effort to do this, and the mast breaks when they're trying to get it into. It comes off the rails that they had built very quickly. It breaks, and then they see the black smoke appear. And so Jack goes, "Oh man, I mean, I guess we're gonna have to hide in the hatch." And I was like, "Bitch, you can't even open it." Also, again, what is this? A New York City landlord like try to fit 40 people in that? Okay, good luck. But now we know at the very end we see that it's deep. So in a flashback, this is what I was excited about. Now I'm going to admit to something here. As soon as I saw the woman in the flashback talking to Jack, I remembered from award seasons that she's in the cast. So I know that she's going to become a consistent character. I don't know in what capacity, if it's purely in flashbacks or if she's on the island. As I remember, her name is Michelle Rodriguez or something like that.
Famed Michelle Rodriguez.
Yeah.
Like, it was actually, I remember it being like, oh my God, they got Michelle Rodriguez to be in the show. Like, I remember people were freaking the fuck out when because she had been famous from like a bunch of other television shows and movies up until this point. So she's a big name that they got to play a character. In
was it Anna Lucille or Anna Lucia?
Anna Lucia. Yeah.
So the way I heard Lucia the first time, and I was like, that makes sense. Okay, Anna Lucia. I've heard that name. It's a very beautiful Spanish name. And then I heard Anna Lucille the next time, and I was like, oh, that is awful. Don't ever say that to your name again.
But my name's Anna Lucille.
Anna Lucille. But we see that in a flashback, they're waiting for Jack goes up to the bar waiting for his flight, and she sits down next to him. And I love this scene. And you can even tell, even if I didn't know that about Michelle Rodriguez, like, you can tell that they're setting up for something here in the future, because there's an unanswered, does he go to her to have a drink on the plane? They don't even show that again. Like, there's no other interaction. Because
they're in two very different sections.
They're in two very different sections of the plane, and we know that she must have been in the tail, which is where Rose's husband was. Which, again, where the fuck did we not hear about Rose in this episode? But anyway, and it makes me like, just the way that she's sizing him up and he's sizing her up, like, that felt significant. It didn't seem like, oh, here's a random memory of him just at a bar beforehand. Like, this is leading to something. So this is where we also get him to admit that he's divorced. So we know that his marriage to Julie Bowen didn't happen, and that she goes on to marry Phil Dunphy, and they have a modern family, and it's a really beautiful time.
It is canon. They are in the same universe.
Yeah, I love the idea that Phil Dunphy's in the same universe as Lost.
But like just this single moment with Ana Lucia already makes Ana Lucia so much more compelling, and like I want to get to know Ana Lucia
More than like any of the women.
Yeah, like Ana Lucia is like, ooh, you look like you have a good story to you.
But I also see her like what. I'm going to be very mad. I'm going to put this out there right now,
Okay.
and I want you guys to try not to react. And I know it's going to be hard.
Okay.
If she ends, I'm going to close my eyes so I don't even look at you. Okay. So
Okay. I'm just laughing because you're being so dramatic.
If she ends up being a part of the island, like we find out that the tail of the planes on the island and there's survivors or whatever, if she ends up being a part of the island and she gets the Kate treatment where her memory, she's a badass, but she can't bring that to the forefront, and all she is another tool for a man, I quit the podcast. Like, I'm going to be so mad. That's not true. I'm going to continue to watch the shit out of the show and podcast about it. I'll just complain about it till the end of time because she's somebody who is like, Kate's a very different badass than her, right? But she's clearly somebody who doesn't take shit. She sizes people up, and she's sexy as all hell.
Yeah.
And there's something cool about her. And if she loses that, because we gotta give more of the props to Jack or to whoever, I'm going to be mad. And not just Jack. I'm just using Jack because they do that with Kate.
Well, she's definitely like the aggressor in like the flirting in this scene. You know what I mean? Like, she's the one to ask, like, so no ring because you're single, and like just like prying for information.
And also says like, hey, come to seat 42F. I think that's actually what her seat was, wasn't it?
She's like, come over here and I'll fuck you, big boy. And you know.
Which, by the way,
she said that
42.
Jack's seat number is 23B.
Those are the ones next to each other, right? I wonder what B and F mean. Big fuck.
Then that's what they did on the plane. They did a big fuck.
What if the memory was just them joining the Mile High Club? The whole memory.
That's why Charlie was struggling to like get into the bathroom because they were too busy
they were fucking. And that's why Jack thinks he can fit 40 people in that tiny little thing, because him and Ana Lucia were able to fit in
Ana Lucia and I fucked in that bathroom.
He's like, if we can make it work, 40 people can make it work.
One other thing I want to point out in this scene is like, I'm just like very hyper aware of like whenever Jack is shown drinking like in any flashback, because that was like such a big like issue with Christian, his father, like addiction is like a genetic disease in terms of like it being like passed down and stuff like that. So I feel like a good way to check in on like where Jack's like mental state is, like what's he drinking.
Yeah
No, for sure. And they like really relay that really well here, because Jack doesn't seem like he knows what he's doing when he's drinking in the scene. He's just like, doesn't really know his liquor that well, doesn't really handle his liquor that well. And maybe you're
starting for a double shot on the plane too.
Yeah. So like, he's definitely going through some shit because of his father's death.
Yeah.
And I also think what's interesting here too, is that this comes, the next thing that we really see is Sawyer's flashback, where Sawyer we see him getting deported from Australia. We saw him break the mug earlier in the season when he goes into the police station.
Yeah.
And I like that the cop goes, "You broke my mug," and it's like, I'll put back together. Thought that was funny. But we see that they're deporting him from Australia.
We also learn, I think, something important. I don't know. I can't remember if his name has ever been revealed, like his true name. So we learned that his name is James Ford. And his name is not actually Sawyer. We knew his name wasn't actually Sawyer, but now we know what.
We just didn't know his name is James. Yeah.
So. And then also before this flashback, I do want to point out and get your opinions on this. Rousseau reveals that there is dynamite at the Black Rock. When you heard that, what did you first think the Black Rock is? Because you've had a lot of theories over the past, over this podcast. When you hear dynamite at the Black Rock, what do you think?
I once again thought it was some kind of like I don't know, like mountain top, like, oh, this was a place where people had tried to like excavate or something like that. Like that's what I kind of got thinking.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. My friend here in town was just started talking to me. I was like, I'm podcasting right now. I need to.
No, you're fine. And then we also learned before the Sawyer flashback that Arts is actually going to join the crew to help grab the dynamite because he's like, you're going to need someone who knows how to handle this. And I'm like, nothing about you screams knowing how to handle this.
Okay, so before we get to that, there's the other important thing that happens here.
Yeah.
Which is that Jack and Sawyer say their goodbyes.
Oh,
and
true.
Sawyer decides to tell Jack that he had a drink with his dad, and what we can assume was probably his dad's last night of living, and he is able to convey that all the things that Jack's father wishes that he had the strength to do but couldn't. And this is once again such huge character growth for both of them, but especially what I like about this is that Sawyer is like, well, now that I'm not going to see you anymore, I'll tell you. Like I just like I love that as a goodbye. It's kind of Sawyer's way of giving him the ultimate respect, of giving that last little bit about his father. So I wanted to mention that.
This is in my top 3 favorite scenes in the entire series of Lost.
It's really well done.
I get like emotional when I like even just like think about the scene because like this is such like, well, first of all, like beautiful acting from both characters. Like the music cue is like spot on, but like Jack like can't even like look at Sawyer when he's telling him what Jack has wanted to hear his entire life is that like Christian was really proud of him and knew deep down that like he was a better surgeon than he ever could be, and he
knew that he had been awful to him and that he wished that
he wasted his whole life like wanting to apologize but never got the chance to. And what's crazy to me is like this is validation that Sawyer has wanted his entire life from his parents that he will never get as well. So I feel like this is like a very healing moment for Sawyer that like he gets to be the one to tell Jack this and to get to see Jack's like just a visceral reaction to it. It's so like it's just a very, very, very good scene.
I loved it. I think
I could rewatch the scene like over and over again.
I agree. I think this was probably my favorite scene of the finale because I've been waiting for this moment. Like since we knew that he had a drink with Christian, I was like, oh, and that we also knew that he made the connection that it was Jack's dad. So then let's go back to the Arts thing because these are the series of notes that I wrote in this section. Because what happens is Arts joins them, and then they get to the dark area. Is that what they call it?
The dark territory.
The dark territory. So I wrote, why introduce Arts so close to the end? And then I did a little arrow underneath that says casualty to show evil ? And then I went, and he turned around. Because he gets freaked out, he turns around, runs away. And then I wrote, and he's being chased by the island monster. And I was like, all right, so here we go. We're gonna have another casualty from the island monster, which he doesn't become one. But Danielle Rousseau says that calls the monster a security system to protect the island, which I think is really interesting because I think that's the first time we've heard of it in this capacity as like a security system. And I really like that idea that it's not, because it makes sense. It's not out there all the time. It only happens to be there at certain moments. Like we first saw it when the plane crashed, right? What's happening? Island says, put the monster out there. Next happens when they're hunting boar and they're getting farther into the jungle area. I mean, so it must be that they're getting close to something each time, and like the island, like sends it out. So I thought that was interesting.
Before this scene, I do want to mention 2 things that happen that are pretty important. One is Charlie is starting to gather notes
Oh yes.
of everyone on the island, and so this factors in later in the episode when Sawyer decides he needs some casual reading. But it's really cool that he's like taking this moment to like have people write notes that they're going to give to their loved ones once they get rescued off this island. And then we also have a flashback for Kate that happens in between that moment, where the marshal is taunting her.
Yes.
And what are your thoughts on that?
Once again, this is where I thought this was in the last episode, so that's why I got confused.
Yeah.
But this is where we're seeing that so this is also another thing. They said he needed 5 guns. 5's a number. And
Wait,
he's
no, it's not. Wait, is it? No, 4, 8, 15,
No.
16, 23, 42. 5's
I
not
thought
a
it was
number.
4, 5, 8.
No.
Okay.
4, 8, 15, 16, 23, 42.
Well, fuck off. It's 1 marshal and 5 guns. That makes
I'm just
15.
like, well, actually.
No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so yeah, but in that moment, I mean, once again, we're just, I can't wait to have, and I hope they do go into, like, why is this marshal so awful to Kate? Like, all he does is gaslight her. And
It's personal for him, it's very
yeah,
like Tom and Jerry, like he enjoys the chase and he like just like very sickly like gets off on it in terms of like wanting to just like intimidate her and like make her like fear him. It's very much a control thing for him.
Yeah,
absolutely.
for sure.
So the next thing that we see is another really great scene. Walt decides to give Vincent to Shannon. And then I even wrote, "Aw, best Shannon scene yet." And what
It looked
happened?
like we were both about to cry. Like I remember us watching.
It was really, really touching. And what we get to see here is the acting on both actors' part was really, really great. Where, Shannon's been so closed off to everybody, which is understandable. She just lost her brother. And she also thinks still that Locke kind of got away with it as a murderer. And Walt can't bring Vincent onto the raft. He realizes this, and then he also sits back and he says, this dog was perfect for me when my mom died because I was able to talk to him since nobody would talk to me. And I didn't want to talk to other people. And Vincent's a really good listener. And I think that he could be a really good listener for you if you need to talk to somebody. And basically was like, here's an emotional support dog. And it was just so cute. And like, she's kind of resistant at first. Like, you see her realize like, oh, this is probably meant to be. Like, this is great. So she takes it. And that feeling for Shannon is very short-lived for Beth, because then we go to a memory where you see her be so fucking racist to Saeed. And
oh my God.
I'm just furthermore like, how the fuck are these two a couple? If this is a commentary on like, look at how great racist white privileged women can be once they finally get to know somebody. Like, no, fuck off. I don't want that. I don't want that at all. That's a fucked up storyline. That's not fun. It's not a learning opportunity. Early mid 2000s, bitch. That is no. So basically what we see here is that she's in the airport, and Saeed goes, do you mind watching my bag for a second? I need to I don't know if he has to run to the bathroom or run to buy something. And she's like barely paying attention. It's like, yeah, okay. And then like Boone comes over and they argue about something. I can't remember what it was.
Being seated together on the plane.
Oh yeah. And then she or they couldn't get first class or something like that.
That's what it was.
And so they have to go economy or whatever. And then so they leave, and they leave Saeed's bag now unattended, fully knowing the climate in 2004. And they go up this escalator, and then she fucking tells the security guard, by the way, there was an Arab guy and he left his bag unattended. And he was like, do you have a description? She's like, he's Arab. And I was like, gonna fucking kill her. Like, oh my God, why the hell?
She has nothing redeeming about her.
And here's the best part. And then I was sitting there going like, I just felt so good about her. And then I realized I didn't feel good about her. like, oh, this might be a good thing for her. I felt good about Walt. So not even in the scene before could that redeem Shannon in my eyes. She is
Yeah.
the single piece is like she's just such a piece of shit. Like I just hate this character so much. Ugh.
Yeah.
Maggie
She's a
Grace, you need to get a better acting career, girl. I'm gonna just fucking hate you for the rest of my life.
damn. Tyler, I want to know, since we have you here, what
Yeah.
is your thoughts on Shannon in season 1? Because obviously, like Beth, I'm just
I
curious.
love her. I'm so
Yeah, so I remember the writers saying that like with Boone and Shannon specifically, it like their age was really hard to do flashbacks for because like you can't go too much younger and still have like the same actor like realistically playing it, right? So like
Yeah.
there wasn't a lot of like backstory that could be shown. So I feel like they very quickly ran out of ideas with Boone, so they killed him off. The whole like Beth, you're totally right. Like the whole like Saeed Shannon storyline is very like weird, especially how much of a passionate lover Saeed was for Nadia. It's very like out of left field, and I just like realistically, if this were to like realistically happen, like I'm sure there's like a lot of the people that survived the plane crash would probably have this like I didn't sign up for this, I don't want to be here attitude.
Yeah.
Like that's realistically what it would be like, but it's just so unrootable. It's very
It's just so unrootable.
you know, where does Shannon's character go? Like even with Vincent now, like you're right, Beth. Like I think that's more of a moment for Walt than it is Shannon. Yeah,
Poor Vincent. Honestly, like you were getting saddled with the worst human in the world who literally is not going to care. Like guarantees she's like in the first episode of season 2, she's going to be like, Charlie, would you feed my dog for me?
Yeah.
Like literally, like she's not going to do jack fucking shit. If she changes and becomes a responsible, productive human being because of it, I will change my tune. But
yeah,
I
Beth,
have a very
I would love to hear like where you think Shannon will go in season 2.
Yeah.
hopefully the grave.
Oh my god. Okay. Yeah, you heard Shannon dies.
No, I
one
think
thing-
that
Okay, go.
I do see her. I say this all jokingly. She's clearly grown. She's clearly changed in a variety of different ways. A lot of that has to do with Saeed. What I can't wait to see is if it comes out to Saeed that she's the reason why he got detained and like searched and such before the flight. Especially after everything he had just been through over the past couple of days beforehand with his friend dying, and a lot of that having to be because of jihadists and, you know, all of that being so close to home. And it'll be really interesting to see, is he forgiving? Is this or does this never come up? Like, was this just a ploy from the writer? I'm going to be very upset if this is a ploy for the writers and it doesn't come up in the future. Because, like, why put that in there other than to continually terrorize, you know, Arab originating people? You know, that'll be very disappointing. But I really hope I think that's going to be an interesting thing. It's less about where is Shannon going and more about where's this Saeed Shannon relationship going based off of the past, for me. The next thing that I have written down here is that we finally get to see the Black Rock, which is a pirate ship? Question mark?
It is a slaver ship.
Right. That's
based off the people in the shackles.
So that's what was interesting, is that they kept saying it was a slave ship, but then there were times where I got the idea was like, was this like a pirated slave ship?
Yeah.
That's what I couldn't figure out. Okay. But yes, and so this is another thing that's really interesting, is that we, you know, it would have been going in the wrong direction if it was a slave ship. That's why I was confused. Right?
Yeah. And it's also weird that it's a ship in the middle of the island. Like, how does that happen?
This island has... Okay, but once again, we're going to use the tertiary character they introduced in the last episode to answer the said question, which is, this island makes no sense, so therefore it's a tsunami that happened. So yeah, no, I agree. Like, why is it here? But I'm also at the same time kind of like, I don't know, like, why are there seashells in rocks on top of mountains because it once was underwater. So shit could happen. I don't know.
Yeah.
So
But
yeah,
it
I think it will be interesting to hear like what the origin story is of that though.
yeah, it is like an interesting point. This is like I think like what the second vehicle that has been kind of left abandoned on this island.
Yeah.
And it's slowly becoming, is this island just a graveyard for like all these things? Like I don't know. It just seems weird that like in season 1 there's the Beechcraft. We've got this plane obviously that crashed, and now we've got this ship that seems to have just been
And we also
abandoned in the
have
middle of the jungle.
and clearly there was something with the Nigerian like fake
Yeah.
priests that are really drug cartel people, whatever as well.
The skeletons in the cave as well. Like there's like
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
random like pockets of dead skeletons like everywhere on this island. So
This island's been around for a while, apparently. Like
Yeah.
that's like what we gather from this is especially because the ship and that dynamite has been here for a very long time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Except for the fact that, you know, like you pointed out when we were watching, that it says explosive in English on the fucking box, which makes
was
no
like,
sense.
They're like, this is from Africa. And I literally unmuted. I was like, it says explosives in English.
And it's like clearly like someone had taken spray paint with like a stencil. And this one.
they have to bring Shannon out there to translate.
It's spray paint.
I was like, what year was this again? Because that box doesn't look like it was from that year.
That's so funny to me.
It's clearly a production error. Like, yeah.
And then the last thing from the first part of this that I have is that Sun makes Jin an English translation guide that's important for him for the raft. So she teaches him port and starboard, left, right, all that fun stuff. And that they finally are able to have the moment where he talks about like why he was really leaving her, and like it's the moment that's really been why they haven't been talking. And Jin believes that he's being punished, and that going on the raft and trying to find help to save Sun is the only way to redeem what he's done and redeem their relationship. And Sun, I know Sun doesn't agree with that, but she respects that that's what he feels like he needs to do, and she lets him go, gives him that translation guide. So I thought that was really sweet.
I do want to talk about just very briefly that flashback with Sun, because we're starting to see a theme of like racism through all of season 1, where anyone basically who's not white, racism is affecting their storyline in some way, shape, or form. And so Sun has this moment where she's sitting and Jin kind of goes off to use the restroom, and there's this white couple behind her that are saying some really fucking awful things about Sun, and Sun can speak English. And instead of like obviously calling this couple out because she can't reveal that she speaks English, she just sits there and takes the brunt of the force, which I think is kind of like Sun's character. She just puts up with a lot. She's got like these huge defenses and she can take a lot from a lot of people. And I think that's what this flashback is kind of there to show, is that like Sun is a very strong woman, and like it takes more than just some shitty comments from people to like really bring her down. And I'm happy that we got this. I just hope that going into season 2 we get less racism as like the pillar of these people of color storyline.
Well, and they showed this scene twice, right? Like once from like us not being like captioned like what they're saying. So like we only hear like those the white people being like, it's like memoirs of a geisha all over again, just like really terrible things, and just like assuming the worst. Like they say like, I'd be caught dead before serving you like that. But then when we see it again from their perspective and like reading like the captions of what they're saying, Sun's like, are you okay? And Jin's like, no, it's fine. Like, are you okay? Like being like very like understanding. So I think the overarching like theme of this flashback for them is like their relationship is very misunderstood from outside perspective. Whether it's from like her father, whether it's from people on the island, whether it's from random racist people at the airport. Like they are very quick to give their opinion on a marriage they don't understand, a culture they don't understand, and circumstances they don't understand. So, and you would never expect that Sun is this like really strong woman who has grown like so much on this island to what you said, Dylan.
Yeah.
I think what's interesting about Sun's character, and I know Dylan hasn't seen all of Game of Thrones. Have you, Tyler?
I have not seen a single episode.
Oh, taste.
Oh my
no, I'm
God.
kidding.
Oh my God.
See your face.
You know me, I'm the most like contrarian person. Like if it's too popular, I'm not going to be about it. So.
But you like Lost? It was like
Lost?
the biggest
Lost?
show.
I feel like
is a
it's
bad
still
rap.
like underground. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of people who think they know Lost, but they don't know Lost.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So, there's
so
a
true.
character. I'll say this for the audience sake. I won't say it for your sakes because you won't know what the fuck I'm talking about. I don't believe I'm going to be 100% honest here. I don't think the writers are intentionally writing feminist things here. I think that it's a byproduct of how they're trying to portray a woman. Okay. And what I think is interesting is that when people watch Game of Thrones in the first few seasons, they see Sansa as a really weak female teenage woman character. And then at the end of the series, they're like, wow, she's like the strongest female character. And it's because of the same reasons why Sun is seen as a weak character, which is she doesn't stand up for herself. She kind of just takes what's given to her, but she's resilient. She has a good head on her shoulders. She's calculated, and when something is affecting other people, she doesn't wait to jump in. She helps and such. But when it's about herself, she can take a lot before something happens, and that she needs to stand up for herself. And in Game of Thrones, Sansa's sister Arya is seen like, oh my God, what a badass girl, because she's like a little girl who wants to be a knight and like can fight, and she's like all these traditional masculine kind of things, like a tomboy and blah blah blah. And Sansa's like, I like to sew and be a proper lady, like a high that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And like what you end up seeing is like Sansa's character is continually tortured in all these social things throughout the entirety of the series, essentially. And Arya goes on to be this like badass fighter. And if you had to say which one is stronger at the end, I think a lot of people, when they're looking around, are going to go, well, they're both fucking strong, but in very, very different ways. And that Sansa represents strength and femininity. And I think what I like about this, and I don't, again, think this is intentional from the writers, because they haven't given me proof in the pudding otherwise.
Yeah.
I think this is an unintentional byproduct, but I do think that Sun's strength is this subtle that she has, and resilience.
Oh, we lost Beth. Oh, you there?
Did I lose you guys?
Oh no. Okay, wait. I think we may have got you back. Let's see. Say something. Oh no.
While Beth is reconnecting, I totally agree with that assessment, and I can't wait for Beth to see like how like where Sun's character goes in the next season and potentially beyond, especially when it comes to like her and Jin, you know, like what is going to happen.
What'll happen? Yeah. Is Jin even gonna be alive? We don't even know by the end of part 2, because we'll cover that, like the raft. Some crazy stuff go down. Beth, you there? Okay, we'll keep covering, and Beth will come back.
One more note, like we see like in the airport, like we saw from like flashbacks that like Sun is like ready to like leave Jin at this point, and like she's like really considering that, like go to the island, and she's like trying to like poison him to get him to stay. So like, I feel like their characters and their intertwinedness has really come like full circle with their time on the island so far.
Yeah, it's been super interesting. I think like that's what's so interesting about Sun and Jin as characters is the fact that their relationship comes across as very like Jin seems like he is this super abusive person to Sun, and in some aspects he definitely is, but like when you peel back the layers and learn more about Sun and Jin's relationship, it is so interesting to see how it has grown from episode 1 to this finale and
Yes.
how like this island really is the best thing for their relationship right now.
That's what I just said. And
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, I really
Yeah.
truly think that this island is good for them, and they may not even know it.
It's true.
But that's part one.
Yeah.
And so let's go on to part two.
Yeah.
Without any further ado.
So we start off with Claire having a lot of stress from having this baby. She maybe even has a little bit of
Postpartum depression.
Yeah, some postpartum depression. Probably exemplified by the fact that she's on a fucking island and like
with no resources.
yeah, nothing around. And everyone is having to move to the caves. Now that the raft is launched, the game plan is to everyone go to the caves and wait for further instructions. And Rousseau,
well, they're taking. Well, there's the let's go find dynamite situation. Now, the part that we'd left out last time is that Rousseau only agreed to bring them to the Black Rock, but not to help secure the dynamite and come back. And she's like, no, I need to go hide. But what we're not getting the truth in here, that doesn't happen for a while, right?
Yeah, she doesn't go get Claire's baby for a bit, but she does leave at the beginning of this. She's like, I only agreed to do this. And she's like, she goes, bye bitches. And she's like, bye. And then she like prances off. She does like, I don't know, a Fortnite dance on the way out.
Seriously, it's more
like the Homer Simpson gif of him like disappearing into the shrubs.
Yeah.
Like, that's exactly what she does.
Yeah.
Okay, so this section, this first part of this episode, my notes.
Is it about Jack?
I get to that, but my first thing was the way I fully wouldn't get on the ship. So
right?
Like I said, you could not pay me. You could be like, Beth, it is a matter of life or death. I'm like, cool. Say something cool at my funeral. Like, I would literally not get on the ship.
Yeah,
and
no
then
way.
It says, I wrote slave ship ? Came from eastern coast of Africa, according to Locke. Cool English on box, bro.
Yeah, that's so stupid.
And then I wrote, Jack is so misogynistic because
He
way
is.
he is so fucking awful to Kate. I don't understand it. Like, he won't at all. Like, I don't understand what this is.
It is such a weird. I just don't understand what the writers keep doing with this Jack and Kate thing. We've seen this so many times in season 1 where either Jack is written in a way that is so out of character or Kate is written that's so out of character and their interactions are so weird. Leading up to this, Jack has not been this sexist towards Kate, and he is like painfully misogynistic to Kate.
So painful.
In
Like,
this
watching it was
episode.
so uncomfortable
Yeah.
because all I sat there thinking was like, he's like, no, don't lift that. Like, no, you can't bring this. No, you can't do anything. And I'm like,
I was like, where's this coming from?
Not? You're the first of all.
Wasn't
you're a
this like
fucking
just
doctor.
when? Wasn't he like this like just when he like found out like Kate's like passed, right? Because like hadn't like Sawyer told
But he
everybody.
knew that she was
No.
the runaway.
Yeah. Jack knew that she was a
Jack knew?
fugitive.
Jack's
Okay,
not
that's
she's
right.
the runaway fugitive was the one in the handcuffs from the very beginning.
It's really weird, and I'm wondering. Okay, so I'm thinking as a writer. I'm thinking, why do we make Jack this way? Are they trying to do it? Oh, okay. Actually, say your point, because I think it might be what I'm trying to hit at.
The only thing I can think of is that they're trying to say, like, this is coming from a place of care. Like, oh, I don't want her to get hurt and that kind of thing. But even then, that is so I was going to say patriotic.
It's so patriotic. I love the way he talks
I mean,
down to her.
honestly, the United States of America is very much like that.
Patriotic.
Patriotic to the patriarchy over there.
I
fucking love that. Patriotic
Put it
to
on
the
the shirt,
patriarchy.
mama.
Put that shit on a page, and then on the back be like, "Just kidding, motherfuckers. Go feminism." But
oh, see, I was gonna say on the back, you just say "little boonie hole," and it's just like a little hole in the back of the shirt.
there's like an arrow pointing to the boonie hole.
Ooh, little boonie hole.
Tyler, real talk. How did you feel about boonie hole when you heard it for the first time?
I loved it. I think it's comedic genius, and I hope it
Yes.
stays around for all 6 seasons. And if they couldn't open up the hatch to get all 40 people in there, I think all 40 people could fit inside the booty hole.
I heard. I've heard
What if
rumors
Jack was
about
like,
boots hole.
we got to take them to the boonie hole?
That's what I was just
This is
gonna
my
say.
shit.
What if instead of hatch heads, it's boonie hole heads?
Oh my
Those are
god, the
fans of
boonie
Lost.
holes.
Oh my god, guys,
I'm
I'm
a-
such a boonie hole, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, you're a fan of Lost," and you're like, "How'd you know? I'm also a boonie hole."
Oh my god. I saw you on the forums.
Oh my god. What if all of this is like really funny and then somebody finds the old forums and somebody's name was Boonie Hole?
Well, I'm Googling boonie hole now, and it's not really coming up with anything. So I think this is a Hot Mess
Trademark.
Moments original.
I feel like
Yeah.
this is a trademark moment. I think we should reach out to Ian Somerhalder and ask him,
How's
you
your hole?
ever how's your boonie?
Is there still 40 people out there? What's going on?
I would love. Never mind. I'm not going down that route.
Could you imagine if we secured an interview with Ian Somerhalder?
And I'm like,
It's his
sir.
like first interview since like doing Lost. He's like ready to like ask or answer like the deep questions, and then
He's like,
he gets
it's gonna
asked
be
about
like a
the booty hole.
genie. He's like, you get one question that I will answer, and we're just like, booty hole. How is it?
Love it.
I'm like, how did it feel
Into
to that
it.
Jack really wanted to touch your boonie hole? Just put it out
But
there.
also, like, do you feel like Jack is puts the romance in necromance?
Ooh.
Maybe.
I hate
Just saying.
that. So we have to also talk about, if we're going to talk about Jack being misogynistic to Kate, we also need to talk about Arts being a fucking asshole to Hurley. Like,
Fat shaming.
fat shaming like crazy to
Mhm.
Hurley. And I'm like, Arts, let's be real here. You're not a looker. You have no room to talk about anyone's appearance or looks or anything. I mean, no one should. But also, like, Arts is like, he's just like, talking down to Hurley for no reason.
Well, this is again so clear to me, and I'm happy that Tyler brought this up too, and that I think this is just a general consensus. Arts is literally designed to be the voice of the audience watching this.
That's
so-
totally.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned this way
People
early
said
in the
that
season.
at the time. Like they
Yeah,
were
they
like,
were.
why isn't
Why hasn't
Hurley
Hurley
losing weight
lost
on the island?
weight? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, and fuck
It's-
off,
it's
first
dumb.
of all, because
Yeah.
it's an actor. So secondly,
Yeah.
fuck off. But no, I think that that's exactly what Art's whole point is here. And that I love that the writers were like, if you guys are all going to be bitches, we just going to explode you
Mhm.
into a billion pieces. But then we do have this moment where he's just like, you know, taking over, trying to be a leader and show people, like he's giving them all the information they need about dynamite, what happens to it, that it leaks. And then we get what I think is like he's doing great. He's being a sciencey bro. He's explaining why they have to be careful, all this other stuff. And I knew it was coming, that he was going to blow up. But Dylan can attest.
You got scared.
I jumped so hard, and then I had to tell Dylan this. I got scared so hard that I farted.
I was like, thank you for letting me know. You were on mute. You literally didn't need to say anything, and you decided to share it with the class.
I shared with the class. It was so important. I needed to tell somebody because,
It was
like,
so funny.
because I knew he was gonna blow up. I knew it. I knew that this is what they were gonna do with the character. It's why I wrote, why are they introducing this character? Are they gonna kill him? Like, what is the whole point? And I knew he was gonna blow up, and it still shocked me. And I jumped. And I actually don't even know if I jumped as much as I farted, and then that just propelled my body upwards. Like, I think that that's a joke.
No, it was girl.
So, but what
It's that boonie hole.
the booty hole got
Yeah, there you go. Okay,
scarred.
sorry.
It puckered and released at the same time. What I what I think that I just read my note for it.
What?
I wrote, I knew Arts would blow up, but it still scared a fart out of me.
I hate
Love
that. I hate
Okay,
that.
so that's great. But I will also say, why is the science teacher, while he's explaining all this, literally chooses the stick of dynamite with the most leaked liquidized version.
He's like, let's play with fate today. Like,
meanwhile, they're like, let's keep the other dry ones. And I'm like, yeah, you dumb fuck. Why are you grabbing the one that's been melted the most?
So then after this is where we get the flashback with Jin, who gets a visit from that really creepy guy in the restroom who ends up being a worker of Mr. Pike's. Is that how you say Pike? I think it is P-A-I-K.
Pike.
Yeah. And he is threatening him, saying, like, we know you're trying to fucking leave. And bitch, we're not going to have that. So you're going to deliver this watch when you get to America, and you're going to keep working for him while you're in America.
Yeah.
Basically, and being like, you'll never be able to leave this. And I was just like, damn. Jin can't catch a break.
Jin should now know that the island is the best place for him to fucking be. But this now begs the question. If there are other people who are on the plane that are on the island, is this guy on the island?
You never know.
I don't know.
Maybe.
And then I wrote, are there more survivors somewhere? This seems like it could be another person, meaning Ana Lucia. I don't even know what this is in reference to, but I just wrote, Shannon is not worthy of that dog or Saeed. So I don't know why I wrote that.
Shannon's trying to carry all this luggage up Boone's clothing, and Saeed's like, what are you doing? She's like, I need this. Like, I need to take this with me. It means a lot to me. And so he helps her, and
she's a bitch about it.
Also, how the fuck does Saeed not remember Shannon? The one woman that you told to keep your bags, you should remember her face so that way you can go back to her. And then he gets like apprehended by security. I would have been like, oh, that dumb blonde bitch that I trusted.
Thank you.
I think sadly, like, it's just something that he runs into like way too often to even remember the face. Like when he gets on the plane, he like there's this guy like next to him that's like looking at him like.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean? And you see him just like brush it off, unfortunately.
I don't think that he needs to necessarily know in that moment that Shannon's the one that rats on him. But you don't remember the face of the person that you asked to watch your bag? That's an important face to remember as somebody who also used to be a communications interrogator person who easily takes in information.
Yeah, I think it's just a little lazy writing on Saeed and Shannon's part, and I'm hoping it gets better. I'm hoping it gets better in season 2.
Hashtag justice for Saeed's writing.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then Hurley blames himself for Art's death a little bit. And
I wrote, Arts really chose the most carroted dynamite, and I have no idea. Oh, corroded. That's what I was.
It's carroted. But
that makes more sense.
It was so gross. There's just like parts of Arts like all over, littered over the scene, and I was just like, love that for you, Arts.
Love that for you. So then we get to something really interesting, which is Danielle comes back to the beach, and it's just Claire and Charlie and the baby, and Danielle says, go find Saeed. I need him. And so Charlie just kind of goes, okay, woman with a gun, I'll leave you with Claire and the baby by herself. That's not at all creepy. And runs off to go get Saeed. And Danielle literally looks like she's going to eat Claire. She's like looking at her like, you just turned into a big hamburger before my eyes, and I'm going to eat you.
And I would watch it.
Oh, okay.
That's judge. That's not the judgmental tone. Did
I judge? I should have said, okay. Like, good for you. I'm happy about that. Love that for you.
I'm actually curious, Tyler, when you first watched this as a huge fan of Lost, what was your thoughts on Rousseau season 1, first time watching?
Yeah, so I really like the connection between her and Saeed, right? it's a very good dynamic, and I feel like they kind of understand each other as like the outsider. But I like in the finale, right? She says like you have the three options. You can either fight, you can hide, or you can die. And I feel like Oceanic 815 is looking at Danielle as like, this is what happens if we hide. Like we become as like loony as this woman. Like this is the result of that action. So like that is like not on the table for us, like hiding like in the jungle. So like that's why they're like really focusing on the hatch. But I just feel like she kind of like shows up randomly in very like choppy ways in season 1. And she's very like one note to me. I'm like, I can't say more.
I know.
But it's so hard to like say my thoughts without giving anything.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense.
So what we do find here, though, is that, you know, Russo's getting really kind of creepy, and she's not even looking at Claire. She's looking like at the baby. And what we see earlier is when they were hiking to the Black Rock, Saeed asked her about, when did you get those like scratches on your arm? And she said, like a plant or something like that did it to her.
Yeah.
And he was like, must have been some kind of plant, which he knew it wasn't a plant. So that's why I was just like, maybe let's dig a little deeper. I thought she was going to be like, you know, a fucking polar bear, because like that is believable. But she went with a plant, and I was like, that's a red flag. Plant's not doing that.
Those flowers out there are fucking ornery.
So she keeps looking at the baby, and we all know it's coming, that she is about to take that baby. And what we don't know what's coming is, in that moment, Claire has a flashback to fighting off Rousseau.
Mm-hmm.
And Rousseau, when Claire was still pregnant, and that she was like running. I'm assuming this is when she escaped the others and was running back, and Rousseau tried to intercept, but I don't really know when this happens. And that Claire scratches her, and I wrote, is Danielle an other, or did she save Claire from the others and she's hoping to get the baby? So maybe she didn't escape the others. Claire was saved by Rousseau. So I don't know. We don't have clarification, but we do know these two have met in some capacity before.
Yeah.
Rousseau takes the baby and kind of knocks Claire out. And so she's bleeding from the head. And it's interesting to me that Rousseau makes Charlie go get Saeed. It's like she wants to be chased. That's what I think is the most interesting part about this. It's like, why get the person who knows her best on the beach? Because you know he's going to track you. Like, that's what I think is so interesting here. So I don't understand that a lot. But Charlie had wanted a gun earlier in the episode, and Saeed wouldn't give it to him. And Charlie blames all of this on Saeed. If you'd only given me a gun, well, bitch, you fucking ran to Saeed, so that gun wouldn't have done anything, you dumb bitch. So there's that, Charlie. And then comes the moment that was the hottest thing I'd seen.
I wrote it as well. I was like, "Ooh, this is so sexy."
This was sexy as hell. Saeed did like a force choke on Charlie's neck that I felt, and it made me like,
you're like, oh,
whoever.
I want to be Charlie.
I was like, this is the only time I want to say I want to be Charlie. Like, only time. I was like, oh, girl.
Leading up into this, I'm curious your thoughts on the flashback of Charlie in this scene where he's waking up in a hotel room with a junkie and literally hides heroin from her. Like, he is at his lowest low at this point. I'm curious what your thoughts, Beth, are going to be on Charlie, because later in the episode we learn that, you know, with the drugs and
man, I'm losing you guys again.
Oh, hello, are you there? Can you hear me?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay, here we go.
Oh, I want to get your opinions based off this flashback to see him at his lowest low, and what we notice later on in this episode where the drugs are stolen by Charlie. They're in his bag, we see.
Mhm.
What do you think his storyline is going to be in season 2 going forward?
So I think that this is another interesting moment where we have seen him try to give the island what the island wants in Locke's eyes, right? Which
Yeah.
is he needs to give up the drugs in order to receive from the island. But we've also seen him lose since he's become sober. And he seems to be, I hate to use this term. I think it's fucking misogynistic and as hell, but quote unquote friend zoned by Claire. And I think that he kind of sees this as like he's got his guitar, but he can't make money off of it. It keeps him busy, but it doesn't give him the fulfillment he needs off the island. He looks at Claire and he's not getting the fulfillment he needs out of her, or he wants out of her. He wants to be needed and used and such, but he hasn't found a way to channel all the things that caused him to be an addict in the first place. And because he hasn't resolved that, it's going to make him think, well, this will make me feel good in such an uncomfortable situation. So I see him slipping back into becoming a drug addict again. But I don't see him being a drug addict for the rest of his time on the show. I see this as being another peak and valley, which is very much what happens with addicts all the time.
Yeah.
Is about recovery, and recovery is not always stagnant. It's dynamic. It changes. And I can see this being reflective in a real life struggle that an addict might have.
I think he just struggles to, like, he wants so badly to be taken seriously and to be respected. Like, this druggie doesn't respect him as a musician. Claire doesn't respect him as like a protector for her. I mean, like, Sawyer even gets a gun in this finale and he's not given a gun. You know what I mean? Like, that shows like how low people view him. So like the only thing that is good in his eyes is those drugs. So like he kind of like wants his cake and eats and be able to eat it too by like taking care of Claire, but like having this like in my backpack, you know, just in case. But it's not good. Not good, Charlie.
Yeah.
No. And then we have Jack being awful to Kate again and not letting her have the dynamite. That, I mean, honestly, that portion of the storyline could be just Jack doesn't want Kate to have dynamite. He wants him and Locke to carry it. Again, if you want to be the fucking leader on this island, don't take the dynamite if you're the only fucking doctor. Like, you need to be the one who needs to stay safe. Literally, Kate was just outed as a fucking criminal. Nobody's going to be upset if she blows up, kind of thing, which is, I think people would mind. But I think that they were like, well, we're going to lose Kate or we're going to lose the one doctor who's our leader on the island. We don't know how we feel about Locke. This could be redeeming for him if he dies or not. And Hurley seems like an all right guy. So it makes sense that Kate and Jack are the two people who should be carrying the dynamite. Not Jack, sorry, Locke. Yeah.
And then like I like your approach also. Like that part can be kind of summed up. And then also Charlie and Saeed are going on this adventure to go find
the baby
Rousseau, and Saeed's like, I know where she would go. She's going to the Black Smoke in order to trade. As I'm going to call him Aaron, the baby.
Yes, the baby's name we find out is Aaron.
So she intends to trade Aaron for Alex and hope that she can get her child back.
And Saeed does have this very empathetic, like, you have to understand this is not somebody in their right mind who was stripped of their baby. Like, this is somebody who is literally going through like what Claire is going through right now. So think of it through somebody like that's lens. This isn't a sane thing because that's not a sane situation to happen to somebody. We also get Michael trying to get Walt to live with his mom. Oh, this is a flashback.
Flashback, yeah.
So we see Michael at the airport leave Walt, who was not responding to anything. He's just playing his video game. And he gets on the phone and it's basically like, I don't know if I could do this. Will you take him for me? I'll send you money, all this other stuff. And you can hear that his mom's not really like into this idea. And while he's on the phone, we see Locke get pushed in his wheelchair towards the gate. And so we see that these two had come so close to potentially not even living together. And here they are once again, Walt and Michael. There's a very different relationship at hand here. And then Saeed and Charlie trying to get Danielle to go by going towards the smoke. I've already said that. Charlie, of course, is brought to all the drugs.
Yeah.
Saeed, this is where, they find the plane. I love that the writers literally went, let's make this super like transparent.
Yeah.
Oh, you need to take a rest for like 1 minute. Let's rest at the one place all the drugs are. Like,
Yeah.
I was like, okay.
Let's make the next potential arc of this story.
I was like, let's hit the audience on the head with a hammer right now. So I thought that was funny.
One thing that we haven't really been talking about is peppered in throughout this episode are scenes of the raft. They're not very consequential, but they're fun, like character beats of like seeing Sawyer read the notes of the passengers. Seeing a fun moment where Jin and Michael are talking about like English and like seeing what Jin has learned so far.
The rudder falls off.
The rudder falls off. Yeah.
Sawyer once again is proving himself. Like we didn't mention this in the last episode, but Sawyer wanted to prove that he's just as capable of helping out, that he's not just some bum, and that he creates the mast again. And we see him once again prove himself by jumping right in and before the rudder sinks, getting it, and then swimming it back with the help of a rope to get back in there. So we see him taking the initiative to also help out in this situation. But we get the security system back here, Tyler. This is a part I missed, and I need to go back and rewatch this somehow. Just this one section, because I was writing notes and I missed some imagery here. It looked like there was a huge eagle or something like that took off.
There is a bird.
So there was a bird or something like that. And so I wrote, this must be some kind of messenger to the others. So, or some kind of thing that helps to trigger the smoke monster. And then we see the monsters approaching, everybody runs off, and Locke just stays in place. Like he did the one time when he was out boar hunting. And when he stood in place, I can't remember. I might be misremembering this.
It rained down and it came down into his face.
And I do want to point out that the bird, according to Lostpedia, the bird screeches something that sounds like the name Hurley. So take that for what.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Wait. Yeah. It sounds like it says Hurley's name.
Interesting.
I do want to know. I don't know if this is the moment that we hear the bird say that name. I can't remember.
Oh.
Yeah. That might be later on.
Okay.
Yeah. That might be a later on thing. Okay, but yes. But the bird does make a weird noise.
Well, to be fair, I mean, it went like it did.
It made a weird noise.
So it wouldn't be shot.
I'd always noted that there was a weird noise, but I didn't like.
Yeah, there is a weird noise.
On that until like
somebody played it backwards and it said like,
"Eat my asshole."
Yeah. So, but what's interesting is the first time that Locke is introduced to the smoke monster, he's actually kind of. You can tell he's terrified, but kind of calm. And there's something like he kind of like smirks or something at the monster as it gets closer, right? Like it's like he's seeing inside the eye of the island. That's how I've kept saying it. Yeah. This time he doesn't smile and he's not calm. Scared. And he is scared. And so we do get to see that it is a smoke monster. And it chases Locke basically and grabs him and then drags him throughout the forest and down into like this pit, this hole. And Locke is holding on for dear life and they're trying to Jack grabs him and they're trying to pull him back, but the monster is still pulling him down, and Locke is like, let me go, I'm gonna be okay. And he's like, no, you're not. And so they waste one of the sticks of dynamite, throw it in there, the smoke monster lets him go. And this is where we have a really interesting conversation in the next scene between Jack and Locke, where they're talking about fate versus science and logic. And this is the wonderful thing that we've already kind of talked about in this episode. And I think it's really important, this conversation. Um, I clearly
It's very
was not on the.
fundamental to like. Sorry, go ahead, Beth.
No. Can continue.
It's very fundamental to who these two characters are. And like
Yeah.
I feel like this is what like Jack's frustration with Locke is Jack is all about live together, die alone. Like
Yes.
that
Yeah.
is like if we don't all stick together, we're gonna be crazy loonies like Rousseau in the woods, just like lost out of our effing mind or dead. One of those two things. So like Jack is trying to like he's willing to sacrifice like a piece of dynamite to save Locke, and all Locke is thinking about is it's my destiny. I want to see it, and like Jack is so frustrated that like all Locke's thinking about is himself and his own journey instead of trying to keep like everybody in the camp alive, essentially.
Yeah.
Well, I think what's also interesting here too is that Locke also thinks about things in this logical way sometimes too. He's the only one on the island who has said, "We know we're not alone. We should be learning more about this island and what's happening here." And of course, there's a selfish portion of him that has curiosity and fate on the mind and such. But we need to figure out this island in order to best survive it, is the argument that he often makes. Instead of it's not just about how do we get off on this island, how do we survive in general. The normal rules don't apply here. We got to figure out the island itself. And so that's what I think is an interesting perspective too. Sorry, go ahead.
I do want to talk about before this scene a really touching moment between Sun and Shannon and a very important conversation that they have. So Sun sees that Shannon is very sad in the caves when they all arrive there because Shannon sees the stretcher that Boone was on, and so she's like very sad. And Sun and Shannon have this conversation about punishment, and she's like, "Are we being punished for things that we've done off this island? Is that why we're here? Is because we were brought here because we were being punished?" And it seems like Shannon and Sun are of the mindset that maybe that's the case, but then Claire comes in and is like, absolutely not. Like, we are not being punished. Fate is not a real thing. And like, we just happen to be here and it's just coincidence.
Yeah.
And I think it's really interesting to see, like, as someone that watched this show the first time, these conversations were happening on the forums and like people were like, oh my God, is there a reason they're here? And it's so fun to see like the characters have these like conversations out loud, like amongst each other, and they're not leaving it up to interpretation. This is a real conversation that these characters are like, we're on this like basically fantasy island, weird shit's happening. Let's talk about fate. Are we here because of like a punishment?
It's purgatory. I've been saying it for a long time.
And it's not just Jack and Locke who are arguing about is it logic or fate. You know what I mean? Like these are things that like all of these characters are just like sprinkling thoughts about like on this island.
And again, we also got a taste of it. I know I mentioned it in the last podcast episode, but we also get a taste of that with Hurley and the woman whose husband was the person who helped discover the numbers, and where she's like, no, these are all choices, and these are about our choices and such. So is it about choice, or is it about fate, or how are they all intermingled? Is there about science? All that fun stuff. So that's what I think is interesting.
And then I have a question for you, Beth and Tyler. What do you think? I know that you said that you think the smoke monster is a security system for the island. What is your explanation for like the noises it makes and like
sounds like an alarm system.
What it looks like? Is it mechanical? Is it magical? Like what do you think?
Porque no los dos? I think it's both.
Okay,
I think it can be like a magical mechanical thing. Like kind of like a force field in some capacity, right? We've clearly seen it kill. Like we've seen it kill the pilot in the first episode. We saw it kill the pilot in the pilot. But we also know that it's like, why didn't it just kill Locke? I think it was bringing Locke somewhere. The fact it just went perfectly into a hole, like that to me is, I feel like the hatch area is like where it is housed. Like that's my spoiler alert. That is my. It's not really a spoiler alert. Spoiler alert to Beth's
Theory.
thoughts. I think that that's what they're going to find down in the hatch. Is like this is where the security system is.
Okay.
Because that was a perfect hole it went to. Like it was covered up and just went down. And that tells me that there's maybe other hatches, maybe other holes, other things like that that it can get out of. And I feel like it was trying to show Locke this is where it is, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I also think it's not coincidence that he was being pulled by his legs, right? Like the very thing that he was like gifted on this island.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. That's a really good point.
Tyler, when you saw this, I'm curious. I always ask people this at Watch Lost. What were your thoughts on the smoke monster when you first saw it? I had the dumbest theories when I watched it.
I would love to know your theories, Dylan, but I just like I was very intrigued with like Locke's relationship with it and how like he like up until this point like he was very much so like I want to see it, I want to know, but then we see him like scared like in that moment. It's almost like he's like scared to find out like is this destiny, like am I ready to like know for sure if this is destiny, if this is like my fate, you know? And it's a very like scary question to ask yourself. And are you okay with knowing your fate? Are you okay with knowing how you're going to end up? And I feel like the smoke monster is more like symbolic for people on this island. And yeah, I also thought it was like, in the pilot, I remember thinking it was like dinosaurs or something like that. So like the more that right, well the more that we see of it, the more it's like an actual monster. And I thought it was crazy seeing that it could like actually physically grab people. Like it's not just like like a wisp, but like something that has like a tangible force that can like kill people. It's very scary.
I also give some props to the mid 2000s CGI.
Yeah, not the greatest. Not the greatest. They did what they had to do.
It is what it is.
I remember watching this when I was watching it for the first time and not knowing what to think, but eventually coming to the conclusion I thought they were nanobots. I thought it wasn't an actual smoke monster, but I thought it was swarms of tiny robots that when they're like grouped together, they look like a billow of smoke, and that's how they're like able to like scan things, figure things out, grab things physically. I'm not saying that's what it is or isn't.
Right.
I just remember when I first watched it, I was like, I wonder if that's what this is, because they make like mechanical noises and they like retreat down to a hole. So I was like, maybe it's like they can get back
like
into and call
like a swarm of bees, but mechanical.
Yeah,
that's kind of cool. I like that theory. I think that obviously it manifests itself into a smoke form, right? But I think that so if anybody has ever heard me go off on a soapbox tangent about what I think the meaning of life is, I'm a communication undergrad in humans. Yeah, this is gonna get somewhere, I swear. The humans are meaning makers in a way that no other species on Earth is. We attach meaning in lexicon and symbols to things in order to better have a shared experience with other humans. And in that way, we're a very social and communicable species, but we're also much more advanced than any other species in the ways in which we communicate. Therefore, I'm a huge believer that the meaning of life is to make meaning of life. So the things that you truly believe in based off of your experiences and how you've attached meanings, that's real. So whether you believe in God or if you believe in science or you believe in a mixture thereof, that is real because you've attached that meaning to it. So similar to that, I have found that I think in this show, the smoke monster manifests itself in a way that you've attached a meaning to it. So if you think it's going to kill you, it's going to kill you. If you think it's going to bring you someplace you need to go, Locke, it's going to bring you to that place. If you don't think you're going to die, you're not going to die. If you think that if you run away and hide, it will go away, it will go away. If you think if you stand there and stay still, it won't see you, it won't see you. That's how I think it operates.
Interesting. Okay. We'll
love
have to
that.
see going forward if that is true. So then we get to this touching moment where Jin gives the watch to Michael.
Yes, I like that.
Effectively showing that Jin, if he were to escape, doesn't give a shit what Mr. Pike has to say. He's like, fuck your mission. I'm giving this watch away and I'm gonna like forge safety for me and son.
I love.
Which I think is great. And then the gnarliest, and I'm using the word gnarly, medical procedure to save Charlie's life here.
Oh God.
Gunpowder to the head, but also can we just talk about the fact he had some gunpowder on his eye? And I was like, could we please move that before you strike this? Because that is gross.
I want to know if this actually works. I doubt it does.
Okay, so no. And yes, cauterizing a wound will stop it from
For
bleeding.
sure. But
But what
gunpowder?
gunpowder would stop it. However, you were inviting a myriad of infections by doing something like
That's
that.
true.
So it solves one issue but creates like 4 more. So that's my theory on it. As someone who has no medical training, but I did work as an admissions counselor at pharmacy school.
You're like, so like I don't have experience, but I will absolutely tell
I
you
watch a lot of
exactly.
Dr. Mike, so therefore
It all comes back to Dr. Mike.
all
So
we need to do is put together like a whole bunch of clips of me talking about Dr. Mike and just
And send
tweet
it to
at him and be like, "Will you like to come on our podcast?"
our podcast that has nothing to do with medical stuff, but
He did a medical review of a whole bunch of random scenes from Lost. I didn't
I'll
watch it.
I will
Can
watch
you watch
it.
it and then
I'll
tell
watch it
me
for you.
what you think? Okay.
Yeah, I will watch it. And then
He's
okay,
hot.
so thoughts, Tyler and Beth, on this flashback of Hurley, the comedic flashback.
I wrote the ticketing agent being awful is like flying United.
Shots fired.
Man.
Beth,
I
I would love to know from you, like, sorry, go.
No,
keep going
no.
with your notes.
Ask away. Ask away.
I would love to know what you think, like, Hurley is, like, if everybody has, like, purpose, like, on this island.
That's true.
In life, like, what is Hurley's, like, role in all of this? Like, what is, and what does this flashback represent and add or counter to that? I would love to hear your thoughts.
I have 2 theories
Okay.
that don't go together.
Okay.
So bear
Welcome
with
to
me.
Lost.
Yes. The first theory is he was not meant to be on that flight. The whole reason why he got on the flight is because of the bad luck, quote unquote. And that the bad luck was actually him making the flight to be on a destined awful flight. But he's not inherently supposed to be on it. So that's my one theory here. The other theory is he is supposed to be on it because he has whatever. We have this whole fate versus logic. He represents both. The logic being there are numbers, there's math, there's something here.
There's a constant.
There's a constant, yeah. And the logic, and that's logic. The fate being, what the fuck is up with these numbers? Are they cursed? Am I cursed? So he represents both. And because you guys are smiling and
I'm just laughing. I just love when you get into theory mode. It's so funny. That's why I'm truly laughing. You just love it because you go like this and you're like, this is exactly how I think. And I'm like, yes, girl, get it. Okay.
I also always look up here. I never this is like the area that my eyes like to look at when I'm thinking.
Yeah. Okay, keep going. Sorry.
But no. I think I think he represents both. I think for somebody who is not a leader on the island, for somebody who really just is kind of seen as like the comic relief, I actually think that he probably plays one of the most important roles at the end of the day, where like there's a purpose and a meaning to the numbers, there's a purpose and a meaning to the fate, and that he represents both. So I guess both theories could go together, that he wasn't supposed to be on the flight, but therefore he was supposed to be on the flight. I don't know. So that's my thoughts there.
Totally.
Yep. I love this sequence from Hurley. Like, even the music is so fun here, right?
Yes.
And I love that the flight attendant says, "This is your lucky day." You know, it all
Jeez.
comes back to luck with Hurley, right?
Yes.
Like it is, and is him being on this island, is it good luck or bad luck?
Yes.
So
I
then,
wrote
Oh,
Jack is such a pissant, and I don't remember why I wrote that.
Oh,
but I love
the pissant comes from after this is where they have that conversation about man of science, man of faith.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think I just didn't like how aggressive Jack is going after Locke in this moment. Like, I understand not wanting to lose somebody because Jack is very much about like keep everybody alive. But Locke is somebody that you think is an issue in some capacity. So just let him do his shit. If he wants to fucking die,
Yeah.
at the end of the
Well,
day,
him doing his own shit has led to Boone's death. I think like
Yeah.
that is really
Gotcha.
weighing heavily.
That's
on
actually a
Jack.
really good point. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
But in this situation, who's gonna die if it's just Locke going down a hole?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
one of those situations where I feel like Jack is just really upset at Locke versus by Locke not going down the hole, he's actually potentially putting more people's lives at risk because now he's going to think like I avoided
Yeah.
something, I'm going to bring somebody else into my plan. So anyway, that's just my thoughts there.
And like so even like the both of them have this shared interest of like, yes, we need to go down the hatch, like, but even in that shared interest, Beth, like Locke is all about like, this is my destiny to do so, this is my calling, this is like me and my journey, where like Jack wants to open the hatch, like he agrees that the hatch should be open, but it's for survival, it's for the group of everybody. So even when there's like a common interest, it's for totally different reasons.
And this is clearly setting up a season 2 Camp Locke versus Camp Jack situation for me. Where we're going to have Team Edward versus Team Jacob, but it's going to be Team Locke versus Team Jack.
Yeah.
Like, I think that this is clearly setting up that the two who had, for the most part, been respectful and interchangeable in terms of leadership are going to come head to head a little bit more, because Jack does say to Kate, if we survive this, we're going to have a Locke
problem.
Yeah.
And so let's just finish up that storyline very quickly.
I was going to say, I was like, I think it's the smart thing here, because we're getting to that end hook, cover the 3 main storylines and then talk in depth about thoughts.
So we get to the hatch. They bring the dynamite out. They bring the wire out. And they're planning about how they're going to blow open the hatch. And right when they're ready to do so, Hurley notices on the bunker are the numbers in the sequence. And so he's like, this is bad because the numbers are bad. The numbers are bad. And so he tells them, don't blow it up. Don't blow it up. Don't blow it up. And of course, Locke's like, fuck you. I'm gonna blow this up. And so he lights it, and Hurley's like chasing the thing, trying to stop it out. They pull him back before he can get blown up, and it blows up, and they go over to the hatch, and they move the like little hatch opening over, and they look down, and there is a ladder that goes down, but then it breaks off and there's no ladder after a while, into a seemingly very deep hole tunnel bunker.
So you said that you think the hatch is where the security system houses.
Of some sort. Right? And I don't think it's just the smoke monster. I think it's like all the tools that, and I don't know. And I think I don't know if the others are in cahoots with the island, if they're against the island, whatever the case is. So I don't have like thoughts there.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, I'm telling you,
much.
Season 2, episode 1, bitch, it's crazy.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
Beth, so I just want to point out that, like, so you mentioned that, like, Hurley is kind of a combination of, like, science and faith, right? Like, these two like pillars of ideologies, but between Jack and Locke. So it's interesting that, like, they come together for like one goal, and then Hurley is the one that says, no, we shouldn't do it once he sees the numbers.
And also Walt was the one that said, don't blow it up.
Yeah.
And don't. So there's something there too, that the two of the people who arguably have the most mystery, supernatural stuff around them, for 2 very different reasons. Walt manifests things to happen that potentially he. I say this, so this is a theory. It's not told, but weird things happen around Walt that he may or may not manifest. Whereas Hurley may or may not manifest bad things to happen around him, right? So it's interesting that the two people who manifest things like that way are the ones saying no. So I think that that's very interesting.
I think the next thing that we should cover is the Saeed and Charlie, and then end off with the raft and like theories there.
So Saeed and Charlie, we do find out that Charlie did bring back drugs. So as we mentioned, that happens. They find Rousseau and they hear the baby crying. They take the baby back because the others are not at the fire and they don't know where they are because there's a distraction. And at this point, it was actually before the scene. This does report back to the raft. So just as a brief thing. We see something that's like waves in the distance. And I was like, oh, that's the others. And I knew it. And then when they weren't at the thing, I was like, I was fucking right. I was so happy with myself.
Well, you also really called it out because you had unmuted and you're like, it's going to be Walt, isn't it? And I was just like, you have to wait and see.
Because when I had been saying, I said that a while ago.
Yeah, you did.
I think like a long time ago, I had said, clearly they're after children or babies. And I think that they wanted Claire. Okay, this makes more sense. They wanted Claire because they knew she was going to have a baby and thought that would be the child they need. But then they realized they don't need that child. They need the child that's already on the island. That's the force that they need. And they found out it was Walt, but he's a little bit more grown. That's my new theory. Boom. Write it down. That's going to be right. Mark my words. Okay. So there we go. But I did say a while ago, I think maybe Walt could be a child that they're looking for. So clearly they're looking for some kind of child but again, Walt has some kind of like, oh, I see some shit. I manifest some shit. He's got some power. Some weird shit happens. We've been new. Okay. So yeah, when they get to Rousseau, it was a distraction. They weren't there. They were able to bring the baby back and Claire's happy. Yeah,
that's basically it. Yeah. It is interesting though to see Rousseau be at such a low point from what we've seen her. She clearly is desperate to see Alex, and I think she has strained that relationship now with the Oceanic Flight 815 crew, and so it's curious going into season 2 how that relationship
for maybe Saeed. I think that Saeed understands.
Yeah.
I think Saeed would defend her.
So it's a curious dynamic going into season 2. What will people think of Rousseau? Will Rousseau even be there? Will she go back into hiding? Like, what's going to happen? And it leaves off an interesting moment they could take the storyline into.
Yeah.
And then
the last group is the raft.
Yeah.
So it's the middle of the night and they're told, every few hours they should turn on the transmission signal to try to see if they can, on the radar, to see if they can find any ships or anything like that. And so after much deliberation, they turn it on and they're going to keep it on for a few minutes and a beep starts happening. And then that's where we see like a little bit of waves in the distance and they go to the Rousseau stuff, right? When it comes back, they're debating about whether or not they can shoot out the flare. And it's getting closer and closer and closer and closer and closer. And Michael's going, not yet, not yet, not yet. We only have the one flare. We have to save it. And then it starts to go away. So right when it goes away, Walt and Sawyer are really adamant that they shoot the flare. And Michael shoots it. And then it starts coming back. And I knew it was going to be the others. I knew it was going to be the others. I knew it. And so I was like, bitch, I would have let that motherfucker go. But regardless, they come up and some of the creepiest motherfuckers I've ever seen, which I believe included a blonde woman, a bearded guy who was running the light, who was the one doing the talking. And I couldn't tell if there were 2 or 3 other men on the boat.
I think there were 2. They might have been twins. I can't remember if they looked the same or not.
I mean, there were 2 white guys, so they looked the same.
Basically.
With stubble. So they're good. So they're twins. So basically, they're like, "Yay, they saved us!" Like, "Mwah," and they're like celebrating, and the guys, everybody else is like, "That's so great that we saved you," and like looking at them creepy. I was like, "That should be a red flag if they
Yeah.
are looking at you like that." Um, and it ends up that they shoot Sawyer because
Yeah.
Sawyer's going for his gun to shoot them. They explode the raft and they
Yeah.
take Walt and they take him away.
That's
Sawyer's
Walt,
very
crazy.
defensive. Like as soon as he says we're gonna have to take the boy, like you see like a light switch off in
Yeah, he's
Sawyer's
just
like
like,
face.
yes, because again, this is yet another child who's being separated from his father, being
Exactly.
separated from his family. So yeah, absolutely.
and we'll go over like our predictions for season 2 and our season 1 recap. But overall, who is your MVP, LVP, and thoughts on Walt's just being kidnapped?
I'm gonna say MVP is Saeed in
Ooh,
this
okay.
episode because I think he's the one that acts the most collaboratively, logically, fate-wise, empathetically, and he's able to resolve one of the situations with understanding and firmness,
Okay.
without anybody truly getting hurt. Um, this is really hard just because everybody is really featured in this episode, so it's really hard to just pinpoint it. But as I look at my notes, like he's clearly for me, I think the
Yeah.
number one. Sawyer was actually a very close number 2,
Yeah,
which is
he's really good.
interesting. Um, and and actually Kate was pretty high up there for me because she took a lot of shit and was trying really hard to kind of redeem herself in this episode.
Yeah.
The LVP for me, and actually Michael, this was a good episode for a lot of
Yeah,
people.
they're so good.
The LVP for me, I'm gonna go with my good old one, Shannon.
Let's go, Shannon.
Deserved.
Yeah, it's well
Shannon,
deserved.
yeah, Shannon's 100% the LVP. That's
Beth,
She can-
I want to ask you a question about like the were there any how advanced do you think these others are? Like they have like a boat that is like running on
That's
like
true.
gas and electricity,
Yeah.
but yet they look like pretty rough. Like, were there any takeaways from like their appearance?
The only takeaway I had was the fact that they seemed to anticipate that Sawyer was going to shoot at them and they like shot him first. So there's something to me that is like intuitive. Also, how did they know where the raft was in pitch black? And it seems like they were just about to turn around, but they knew the general area. So that tells me there's a sense to me that it's kind of like the war in Vietnam, where those that were native to Vietnam, the Viet Cong were like really good at defending their own ground because they were so well tuned with the jungle, with the underground like caves and
Yeah.
such that they had
That's
built the trees, and they remind me a little. And it's the same thing with any of the wars that we have fought in the Middle East, especially in Afghanistan, where there's a lot of caves and mountains and such, where it's easy to retreat into and have high point and high ground and defend. I think that they, by virtue of having so many different aircrafts and such, maybe one more than we've ever actually have been able to see, they're able to glean the technology.
Yeah.
But I
that
still
makes
don't
sense.
know who they're working for, what they're doing, that kind of thing. If this is really some kind of waiting place, purgatory, what is their purpose? Are they tempters? Are they more on the devilish side? Is there a balance? Is there something on the angelic side? Are they the angelic side and the people that we're rooting for are the devilish side, I think
Yeah.
that there's some interesting things here that could happen. So I really don't have too many theories just based off of looks alone, but it was
Yeah.
kind of fun to finally see other people who clearly are the others.
Yeah, it's super exciting, and it leaves a lot to be speculated about for season 2. So this is crazy. I can't believe this is our longest podcast for sure, but we
100%.
3 beefy, juicy episodes that we had to cover.
I'm
Um,
excited to
uh,
talk about this episode in comparison to all of season 1 and
yeah,
such. But so Tyler, when you think about season 1, just because we're going to talk about this next week, but I want to get your thoughts.
yeah.
How do you feel about this as a finale for the season?
I think it's like it's like a cinematic like movie. You know what I mean? Like we
Yeah.
have like the highest highs. We get like so many questions answered, but still so
Yeah.
many more. It leaves on the perfect cliffhanger. I think the whole like sequence on like them going on the raft and like the music and how it was shot and Vincent like swimming out in the water to
I forgot
Walt
about
was
that.
like broke my heart as like a new dog dad. That just like broke my heart.
Yeah.
But it's just so good, and I feel like it's very the like the characters themes are like really coming into their own in this finale. Like we haven't seen Locke and Jack be so like outward about like their different like logics in life, like whether it's like science or faith, and it kind of like raises a lot of questions of like, where does that go in season 2?
Yeah.
Was there anything that really meant anything in these flashbacks that we saw at the airport?
And that's a good point. We didn't bring up the very fact that before we get the ending of all 3 of these storylines, there is a sequence of everybody getting on the plane. And really what they were, I think, is a reminder of how people have changed and grown since they crashed.
And I'll tell you what, I will never, to this day, every time I hop on an airplane, I'm like, what if I was stuck on an island with all these people? And every time, because of Lost, like those scenes like that, I'll like walk on an airplane and I'm like, I would hate you. You would be cool. I don't know who you are, but I think
what's that movie? Is it Grandma's Boy where they're like, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. You're cool. Fuck you.
Yeah. That's basically me every time I get on an airplane now. Is like, I always think, what if I was on an island like Lost?
Could you imagine if anybody ever listens to this and they're like, I got on a plane with Dylan. I want you to know he looked at you and said, I fucking hate you. I'm going to hate you on this island.
Yeah. But like, it just goes to
Tyler.
Like,
yeah.
No, I'm just like, I'm thinking about Hurley. Like, that's who I'm thinking about right now. Because like, say you're like sitting on this plane, like, oh, this guy's like holding up the plane, like he's coming in late, taking up two seats, just like being like a hot mess express, right? Where like we see it from his perspective, like he just has like the biggest heart in that whole sequence, like trying to get to. You would never have guessed that he won the lottery. Him like giving that little thumbs up to Walt is just like such a sweet.
Oh yeah.
The fact that he like pulls out a comic book, like you just never know.
It's
who
the
these
comic
people
book
are.
it's the comic book. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool. And I just love just thinking about how all of us can agree that if it happened in 2021, we would all sacrifice the people not wearing masks that had to get kicked off the plane. That Karen would be like, oh, here you go, others. You can take her. We are good. The Shannons would be dead.
They're like, we're going to have to take the boy. And we're like, do you want to take the Karen instead?
Listen, we will trade you
Package
the
deal.
boy for 6 Karens and a Shannon. Thank you very much. You can take all these white women who are entitled, and while you're at it, take these 4 frat bros. Thank you. You can take the Chads for sure. The Chads and the Brads.
Well, seriously though, thank you so much, Tyler, for joining us today from Hot Mess Moments. For those who don't know, Tyler also is an amazing person within our very small Hot Mess Moments community who helps us out with, I think you track, correct? Some of the stuff that we cover.
Oh my God. Of your MVPs and LVPs that I will give you guys this data for your show next week when you're recapping like all of season 1 for The Nanny and Lost. But this data is really interesting. I'll leave it at that.
I think also before we record, I might try to pull outfit of the episodes from each one, so I can try to pick my season 1 outfit of the season.
What we should do is
Okay.
put that as
Yeah.
things in the branding portion here in StreamYard, which that's some fun background information for everybody else listening.
Love it.
But what we could do is try to put a slideshow together of the outfits that like your favorite ones, so that's a
Yeah.
visual for those that are choosing to watch us.
The
Pretty
only
cool.
things that I'm keeping track of in the spreadsheet are the
Yeah.
MVPs and LVPs. So I'm not
Yeah.
keeping track of like the number ratings. I love
No
hearing
worries,
those
yeah.
ratings, but like
Yeah.
the MVP and LVP is what is interesting to me.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I think that's going to be really interesting as well, just to see like who has the most MVPs, who has the most LVPs, and so forth. But
Very cool.
thank you so much, Tyler, for joining us. This has
course.
been amazing. We'll have to bring you back at some point for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And Tyler, can you tell if there's anything else besides My Weekly Meltdown that you want to shout out? Do you want to promote anything for our listeners?
Well, if you're listening to this and you are newly engaged or know somebody who is newly engaged, I just happen to be a wedding photographer based out of New York City, but not just New York City. If the price is right, I will travel anywhere and everywhere to shoot your wedding and
Where
create
have
some
you
moments
been
that
to
last
do-
forever. I've been to Palm Springs. I've been to Taiwan. I've been to New Orleans. I've been to Mexico. All over for weddings.
Colorado.
So,
well, I mean,
yes,
you
Colorado.
shot some stuff there, but yeah.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
Yeah. So if you need a wedding photographer, go to scratchstudios.co to look at my
That's
stuff.
.co, not .com.
Yes, .co. .com was taken. I tried to buy it from the guy, but he wouldn't have it. So
Rip.
whatever.
Yes,
So we
book
write.
Tyler.
Yes,
Book
please.
Tyler. Okay, so Dylan and Nigel, when are you going to get your photos done by Tyler?
That's true.
Once we're no longer in a pandemic. And I lose a lot of weight and we all look super hot and skinny and
I feel like
but thank you all so much for tuning into this episode of Hot Mess Moments. Reminder that if you can, let us know whether you would like our season 2 episode to be split, where we have an episode of The Nanny and then an episode of Lost. So that way they're not merged together. If that's easier for y'all, let me know. And also, we'll see you next week with our season 1 recaps of both The Nanny and Lost. So look forward to that. I'll see y'all next Thursday. And until then,
Bye, you little boonie holes.
okay, bye, y'all.